What's up, Chumbags? Welcome to the HQ. You're listening to the Respawn Station podcast. My name is Nick Sivak, and I'm joined by Kandula.
Indeed, you are. Whoa, shit! He was here the whole time.
Yeah, we do this weekly gaming podcast. You might not know that because of how sloppy some of my intros are, but we have been doing this for 50 episodes. Can you believe it? Including the season that shall not be named, I guess.
Yeah. Season 0. Yeah, it's crazy. Honestly, good on us. You know, pat on back for that because 50 episodes is no small feat. And you know, we've had a lot of things that we've discussed on this on this show so far.
Yeah, what was the original milestone you were trying to get to? Was it 21 or whatever to make it past like that podcast?
Yeah, it's like it makes us like the top 3% of podcasts or something. Yeah, no, we're well past that now. We're 100%. We can say that we're hosting one of the best podcasts in the world. I mean, it's up there.
Absolutely.
And here's to 50 more. You know, I can only imagine that like 100 episodes. What does that put us in? I feel like we're at least competing with the Hawk Girl here now at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not sure.
That and Joe Rogan. So in case you're stumbling upon this is a video game podcast, and we do like to talk about video games here, like the Summer Game Fest and Xbox Game Showcases that happened this past week. We're going to be talking about our favorite picks from those showcases. We're not going to be including the Sony State of Play because we already talked about that on last week's episode. So if you're interested in...
So 49. Unofficially 49.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're interested in those games, go ahead and give that a listen. Today we're just going to be mainly focused on Xbox and Summer Game Fest. So, But before we get into all of that, we like to ask each other a very important question, and that is what we've been playing recently. Sri, what have you been playing, my friend?
Oh man, Nick, I gotta say this week with all the events and stuff, my playlist has been very small. Pretty much, we'll talk about the thing that we both have in common. But the two things I've been playing kind of regularly off of that have been Just Dance VR. I don't have any more tales to tell from my virtual reality dancing experience. And also a game called Thrill of the Fight, which is a very like bare bones boxing sim, but it's also like very like it's a good workout. You know, you just get in and you're just swinging. It's also like I don't know. It's like extremely soulless. So like like it's like I get the workout in, and then after the match is over. Like the judge stands between you and your opponent, and it's like, and after a decision from the panel, the winner is, and then it'll say like red corner, blue corner, but like at any point you can turn around, like turn over to the judge and just start fucking like punching him in the face, and he just doesn't react. He's just like, just there's like head bounces. So it's become like a new favorite thing to like nut tap the judge every time he's announcing the winner. So stuff like that. That's my regular. But the big thing that I've been playing, the thing that I've been playing the most, I'm now pretty much roughly. I think after today, we played earlier today. I've hit 20 hours of gameplay, though. It's probably about like 15 hours of gameplay and then 5 hours of just menu time, according to the game, I think.
Sure.
But that is Elden Ring Night Rain. Nick, have your thoughts kind of changed about this? I mean, I think everything I've said about Night Rain in the last episode reigns true. Well, no pun intended. But it's I'm still having a good time with the game. I think it may have like, I appreciate some of the grandeur of it a little bit more with having, since last episode I hadn't beaten any of the Night Lords, and so now I've beaten 3 of them, and I've experienced like 5 of them, right? Yeah, because we also did the Sentient Pest and the I don't even know what today's was called, but Fissure
in the Fog.
Fissure in the Fog, which, by the way, incredible presentation for that fucking boss fight. We didn't make it all the way down, but like just getting into it and like the doors open immediately. You're like, wait, there's all this fog. What's going on? And then as you progress forward, you can just see like the outline, like the silhouette of this dragon, and then it just like yeah, and then like about like a third of the way down the health, it does this like crazy fucking move where it's like raining ice. It's a really cool
Hmm.
it's a really cool fight. So I'm enjoying that aspect. But what about you? Have you has anything kind of changed in your opinion about where we left off last week?
It changed not so much. Honestly, like the more that I'm playing it, the more fun I'm having with it. And it's like
Sure.
it's kind of funny because it's like there are aspects of this game that I think obviously base Elden Ring and other FromSoft games do, better. Like I think story is like a really weak part of this game, and I don't necessarily know if you're really coming to Elden Ring Night Rain for like story.
The
Like
story,
the
yeah,
stories aren't
yeah,
even like, presented that well in their other games. Like if you're looking for a more traditional kind of story. So like it's not something
yeah.
that like I'm harping on too much, but even in this, the like remembrance, like memory fragment kind of storytelling, I'm not like super big on, honestly. It's a little bit confusing at times. Um
See, it's interesting because I actually think that I mean I've only really done the Iron Eye, but I find like that, like the reading that has been interesting of developing that character because like now I understand a little bit more about Iron Eye because before it was simply just like oh yeah he's an archer, you know, like
mhm,
like I feel like if you do, it may sound like it's the bare minimum, which I think it is also, but it's sort of like before without the remembrance or like just that context of that the codex, is that what it is?
mhm.
Without that context, I think each of the characters end up becoming just referred to as their archetypes. Like, oh, there's the archer, and there's the mage, and then there's
Sure.
the tank or whatever. So it gives a little bit more depth to be like, oh, you know, the Iron Eye was here. He's part of like this this group, and you know, he's on a mission, and that's what brings him to where he is now. To the is it the lands between? Is that or something like that? Is that what it is?
That's pretty much. That's like what the world is in Elden Ring. The specific one in Night Rain is called Limveld or something. I don't know if that's just the
Oh, okay.
region or if it's still in the lands.
Yeah, I think I think they say like lands between or something in the
Hmm.
thing about like he's that's where his mission is leading him. But so stuff like that is interesting enough, but it's more interesting than if it didn't have that. So if that makes sense.
Exactly. Um, I think the thing that is just intoxicating me the most, though, is just that gameplay loop. There's something very addictive that I find about it where it's like, I'll hop on for a match and then I'm like, okay, I want to go again. Like whether or not I died or made it all the way to the final boss or whatever.
Sure.
It's just like there's something very satisfying about, dropping in and it's like, okay, I kind of at this point we've played enough of it where it's like you kind of have like the key spots that you have to hit. Like you have to go to the churches and
Right.
get your healing flasks. You have to go to these forts to try to build up your XP and get like a little bit of loot. You want to go to the big castle in the middle of the map to try to get like a bunch of different upgrades at some point during the run. You want to focus on bosses in the second day and stuff. So it's like we kind of have
Yeah.
this established groove going. And so now it's just like, okay, how can I build my character to maximize this and, try to give us the best odds at success. And like
Yeah.
I'm still finding like a couple of new upgrades and things here and there, but most of it I feel like I've seen at this point where it's just like, okay, you have your different weapons with different abilities, and then you have your basic kind of like your resistances go up or your poise goes up or your health goes up, that sort of thing. So that stuff isn't
Yeah.
exactly surprising anymore. But like I said, there's just something about like hopping. I think it's like the perfect length of a match too, where it's like it's just long enough to really give you that sense of building up a character, but not too
Sure.
long to where it's like, oh, I'm only doing one run a night and I'm good on that. At least for me, it's like I'm
Yeah.
usually doing like two or three in a night.
No, I think that maybe my point from last time still stands true in terms of like I feel like the post match stuff. the hook is there in terms of like, oh, I want to go again and try to get that, like see if I can min max this faster or more efficiently.
Hmm.
But something kind of, I don't know. So you get relics for each run. Even obviously, if you beat the boss, you get better stuff. If you don't, you get kind of like middling stuff that kind of like is RNG type of thing. If you get like a good relic or not. And then there's also Merc, which is the in-game currency. I feel like that needs to be a little bit more accessible, or not like more frequently. Like I feel like I'm not getting enough, because again, I'm 20 hours in and I've literally only been able to afford one of the character skins.
Hmm.
And so I feel like something like that, because after the second boss you get the ability to customize your character, which I will say some of those skins and stuff do look cool. I just wish I could play around with them. And I don't know if it's necessarily needed, but something to incentivize you to break out of your comfort zone in terms of like playing as another like uh avatar,
A
Nightfarer, is
hero,
that
yeah,
what?
Nightfarer, yeah.
Because I feel like I've been playing Iron Eye and I'm like, oh, I'm pretty comfortable with Iron Eye, but I don't really have incentive to play as Wilder or Raider other than just being like, oh, I will actively try to do this. But then,
Hmm.
then it's like the thing of like, okay, but if I'm fucking around, I'm trying to mess around with it. I'm wasting like 40 minutes of my time or some other person's time if I'm like not actually kind of preparing well for it. So yeah,
Sure.
there's some things that I still think that the game needs to be kind of tweaked. And I'm curious about how much support this game gets in terms of like the longevity. It is like I think it's like the 48th best launch for a video game. Is a random fact I've picked up. So I'm sure there'll be something kind of like, hey, like regular updates, but it is also a $40 game. So,
Hmm.
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah. To put a bow on it, though, I'm still having fun with it. I definitely want to see it through all the bosses.
Yeah.
I've beaten 4 of them, so I think I'm one ahead of you currently.
Yep. You
Um,
are.
I've
You beat that
attempted,
goddamn pest.
yeah, I've attempted 3 of the others. I have not attempted the like final boss yet, but the other 3 that I've attempted that I haven't beat yet, they all seem pretty challenging. That dragon that we fought earlier today included, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the larger than life presentation, because I think that's the thing that excites me the most about it, and it's what honestly excites most people about From Software bosses and those designs. Like there are some incredible moments, and it might seem like a little obvious or whatever to praise like a fantasy game for doing cool things with dragons, but I'm consistently surprised at the cool stuff that the dragons do in these games. Like
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
sick. Like you
And
mentioned
they're
that
very like
ice attack.
generic, like I say generic in a nice way, but like these are the type of dragons that I used to draw in my like notebook when I was in school. Like it's a very simple like snout, head shape, and like kind of the long neck. It's very similar, but
Hmm.
like seeing that come to life, and then also like the kind of texture that they add to that, and the almost like personality that they add to the dragon, and just kind of the way that they move and stuff is very interesting and very satisfying. Because like yeah, that one ancient dragon, I think is the name.
Hmm.
I'm terrible with the boss names, but yeah, that thing was freaking crazy. Seeing it for the first time, like just like that, like just oh shit, that's like a proper dragon, not like an ulcerated tree spirit.
And it's like it's cool too, because it's like not only is it a cool dragon, but then you get to phase 2 and it just catches lightning bolts in its hands, and it's just like,
Yeah,
oh, that's so sick.
yeah,
Like
yeah. Though I will say that the dragons really make like the draconic tree spirit very underwhelming, or tree sentinel. I mean, very underwhelming. Of like,
mhm,
okay, you got a fucking dragon or
a horse.
fucking three dudes on a horse. I mean, cool.
Right. But yeah,
All right, Nick,
that's
go
Elden
ahead. Go
Ring.
ahead. Yeah, yeah. I know. I mean, okay. So You have something that you've been getting your little mittens on recently, last 2 days.
Yeah.
Is there? How much do you have to say about it?
Uh, a little bit. So, basically, I had some leftover birthday money, as one does, and I decided to go ahead and pop a fat pre-order. I know, bad word. fat pre-order
Wow.
on Tony Hawk's Pro
I'm
Skater 3
triggered.
and 4. And because of that pre-order, you do get access to the demo, which from the Xbox showcase was announced to have been, launching that day
Do you
essentially.
also get Doom Guy? Or is that only on Xbox?
That's if you get the digital deluxe version. Or
Oh,
like
I
the
see.
deluxe collector's edition thing. So, which I will probably end up doing, all things considered. But yeah, so you get access to they call it the Foundry demo, which is kind of funny because Foundry is the first level of Pro Skater 3, and you do obviously get that level in this demo, but you also get College, which is the first level from Tony Hawk 4. So you get two different levels to play through. You have two different skaters, Tony Hawk being one of them, and I think it's somebody named Reza, I believe, as the second one. But the demo is pretty bare bones. There's no goals or, things to go for, things to unlock, anything like that. It's basically you select your skater and you skate around the level for 2 minutes. So,
Sure.
It feels essentially this is Tony Hawk 1+2, but with the 3 and 4 levels. I think visually it probably looks a bit better than 1+2. I do get kind of a sense of like there being higher fidelity or like, more detail in the environments than 1+2 had. But 1+2 is still like a good looking game.
Sure.
But yeah, just kind of skating around. There's a little bit of like weird, like unpolished areas, but it's not like they're in like very specific spots. It's kind of hard for me to describe. It's like there's this one specific one in College where in the middle of the map there's like a pool that you can enter into, and it obviously has like ramps that you ride up and go down and everything. And then in the Tony Hawk games you can do what's called a spine transfer. And essentially if you go up a ramp and there's another ramp on the other side, you hit the right trigger and you'll like arc and go over into the other pipe. And this pool in College, it doesn't have any quarter pipes on the outside of it. But when you go up at a specific angle and hit the spine transfer button, it's like tagging a pipe somewhere else, and it starts like sending you over, and like you hit the concrete essentially because there's no ramp there wherever the game is trying to think. So I found like a couple spots like that that have like a bit of weird jank to them. And like there's like a couple other walls and stuff that like you kind of should be able to wall ride, but the game isn't flagging that properly, so you just kind of bump into it and you're not able to pull off a wall ride. So there's some like little jank things here and there, but it's less frequent than I would say. Like it doesn't fully detract from the experience. It's just like I guess if you're in like a really high combo and something like that happens, that's when it's going to get kind of annoying.
Right.
And they still have a little bit of time to polish it up and everything, but yeah, just for having access to a short demo, I've just been noodling around in there and getting used to the controls and everything again. I think the presentation's a little bit better than 1+2 so far, just from like font choice, and like the main menu is like a skate shop now, whereas in 1+2 it was just kind of like I think it was like the concrete area of like the Venice map and stuff, so it was just kind of a little bland. But they're doing some cool style things here. The music tracks that they have in the game on like obviously are incredible. They have classic returning tracks plus new music as well, so you get a little taste of that. And yeah, just having fun. It's making me really want to play the full game when that comes out, so I have to wait a little bit longer for that. But yeah, I can already tell it's going to be another one that's going to eat up all my time, especially if they're going to have another level 100 platinum trophy grind, which took forever in 1+2.
Yeah. Well, what is that? When's that release date?
I believe it's July 11th. So essentially like a month
exactly
from now.
1 month. Yeah, okay. All right. Now I'm sure we'll have an entire episode that is entirely based on the Switch 2 and kind of like a full-on review.
Mm-hmm.
But Nick does in fact have his Nintendo Switch 2. That's right. He won the lottery. There it is. And
all its glory.
And so while we won't get into the specific hardware stuff, you have been playing a little bit of that Mario Kart World,
Yeah.
the latest Mario Kart game. Of course, the real only launch title for the Switch 2. Of course, I mean ignoring a Welcome Tour. But Nick, what do you think of Mario Kart World?
Yeah, so I've admittedly only played about maybe 2 hours. I played it on launch day, and I've been so sucked into Elden Ring that I haven't really gone back to it yet.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
but I did put it like about a solid 2 hours into Mario Kart. I've done about 5 cups on 100cc,
Sure.
which is just kind of like, normal. Um,
Yeah.
the thing that jumped out to me the most playing it was that it felt a lot like Mario Kart 8, which I think I was kind of expecting. They have new movement mechanics and new kind of like shortcut kind of things, and like obviously the structure of the game is different, where you're kind of like racing to these different tracks and then racing on the tracks. But like on the sticks and the buttons, it does feel a lot like Mario Kart 8. Like if you're familiar with how you drift in that game, with how you hold items and things on your back to block incoming other items, all that stuff is still kind of there. Visually, I mean, I guess it's just a compliment to Mario Kart 8 and how good that game looks, because it's just like it does look improved, and the more noticeable aspect of World is that the scale is a lot bigger. The environments are bigger. Buildings in the environments are bigger. The physical tracks are wider to account for all the increased cars that are able to race on them. So the scale is definitely better. And there's like little detail things like, like the textures of the item blocks having that like glass crystal look and things like that are, they stand out as looking nice. But like if you squint and you show somebody Mario Kart World and Mario Kart 8 and said which one's which, like I feel like some people would probably have problems being able to be like,
Sure.
definitively one is the other. The one thing I will say that has been the standout highlight is the soundtrack. This soundtrack is incredible. It has, I saw online somewhere that essentially the game has like 200 tracks in the soundtrack for this.
Okay.
And a ton of them are remixes of classic Mario themes and also not classic Mario themes. It's basically just music from the entire series. There's tracks from like Mario Paint and like Yoshi's Island and stuff. But my particular favorites have been from Mario 64. A ton of these like super nostalgic sounding tracks have gotten huge like jazz band remixes. A lot of them are all like, a lot of the tracks are just recorded with an actual band and everything. And if you're familiar with Mario Kart 8, like the music is very kind of similar in that game. But man, it's like you hear some of these tracks. One of my favorite ones is, do you know the theme from Mario 64 with the penguin? It's the one that's like da 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 da. They have like a new rendition of that, and it's so good, and it plays on like a winter level, so like they know exactly what they're doing, where it's just like they're trying to call on your nostalgia brain with a bunch of these different music tracks. But yeah, the soundtrack is definitely the one thing where it's just like you're just playing and it's just like, man, this game is such a vibe when you're driving.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, I think that the big question for me though, is it play smooth as it kind of looks? Because I mean, it's 120 frames per second, right? Or no?
I'm not sure on the frame rate specifically for this one, but it is a very smooth performing game. I've not played online because I don't pay for Switch Online, so I can't really speak to how that performance is impacted with like having multiple actual players.
I've also heard that again, we'll get into this in the Switch 2 episode, but I've heard that the Switch 2's internet is not the greatest.
I mean,
like
Nintendo's always it's always not up to snuff.
It's on par.
But yeah, playing solo, it's completely smooth. It's Mario Kart how you have probably played it. Like usually Mario Kart is not a like resource hog or anything like that. Like I can't think of any games except for maybe like the Super Nintendo one where there's like slow down with any of those
games. Are there any
games.
loading screens at all?
Yes. So that's actually good that you bring that up because going into this and watching the trailers, we kind of talked almost like it was like, Mario Forza.
Seamless, yeah.
And while there is the free roam mode, I've not personally tried that yet. In the cups, it is still structured like a traditional Mario Kart thing. You load into the first race, you do your race, and then it's like results screen, load screen, and then you start from the ending of that race and race to the next, location.
Okay.
And essentially how that works, it's like, I thought it was going to be kind of like an interim driving section and then you start the race. How it actually works is that section of drive to the next race location is considered lap one. So basically you get from the last race to the next place, that's lap one, and then you do 2 laps on the current track, and then that race is over, and then next race,
I see.
and then next race. So it was a little bit different than I was expecting. And so yeah, to answer the question, there are load screens between races and all that sort of thing. When you're playing knockout race, which I did do a couple of those, which is kind of like the battle royale race, essentially,
yeah.
that doesn't have any load screens. That you're just straight from one end of the map to the other, and obviously if you get eliminated, then you're out, and it'll be a load screen back to the main menu and all that. But yeah, it's less like open world Mario Kart, and I think that free roam mode is more so going to be to like kind of explore. There's obviously those like little challenges that they have strewn about, and you can collect the fast food items which unlock different outfits for the characters and everything. So I think that's kind of what you'll be doing in that mode, and like maybe like practicing different areas to try to find shortcuts and stuff, versus it being like a Forza where like you're just plopped into this world right from the start and you're going to initiate races and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out more about Mario Kart World. I will say that not to brag, but I have also been playing a little bit of Mario Kart. I've been playing Mario Kart 64 for the first time.
Oh, nice.
So that's why I know exactly what the track you're talking about, because I've been actually I've been going through them. I realized I didn't really know what the CC stuff was, so I started off at 200 CC and got my ass smoked.
Yeah.
No, I've definitely come down from that. Or is it 150? Either way, it was not 100. I had to go down to 100. I was like, okay, now I'm at least like in the top 4. And then, just for ego boost, I went down to 50, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is good.
I played 64 a year or two ago, and how do you like that rubber banding race AI? I remember that being so bad in that game, where it's just constantly there, just like right up behind you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's brutal, and then also like I mean, look, I'm really bad at Mario Kart historically, just never been good at it, but like even playing it, and usually in the past I've played with like people or like friends, in matches, but like playing with these bots, man, holy shit. I mean, the amount of times that I'm like, oh, I'm doing great, and then it's like it's like somehow they all know, and they're like, oh, fucking shell, lightning, shell.
Yep.
It's like fucking wombo combos up in here. So yeah, that's been that's been something I've been chipping away at, to maybe, I was gonna say appease my rage from Elden Ring Night Rain, but I think Mario Kart 64 has made me rage more than Night Rain. I think
just adding to it.
Yeah, it has not helped. But yeah, I think that's the main kind of games, right? That we have. I will also say that before we get into the main topic, I'll do a seamless transition into the for the sponsorship here, and just say, if you want to support independent games media, then head on over to respawnstation.com. We've been putting out consistently reviews for games that we've been playing. Specifically, last week I mentioned Spray Paint Simulator. You can read all about what I think about that game. And if you watched last week's episode, I think most of what I said stands true. Unfortunately, the game did not make a huge redemption arc. But there is also, my review for the Precinct, as well as like the Backlog Breaker, where I reviewed Yu-Gi-Oh! The Secret Cards. So check all that stuff out. It's I'm really proud of the work we've done on RespawnStation.com. So yeah, go support independent games media. And if there's a lot of ads, they just deal with it. Fucking, what do you want me to do? Anyway, with that said, now it's time for the main topic of the show. And wow, we're jumping right into it. There's no news. Well, this is the news. And I think if we want to quickly throw it out there because at the top of the kind of main topic, this is one piece of news that we had that was not from Summer Game Fest, which was that Splatoon is getting a spin-off game called Splatoon Raiders, and it's coming exclusively to the Nintendo Switch 2. That was kind of a really random announcement.
Yeah, it was posted on the Nintendo Today app, which they announced at the last Direct, where they were going to be sharing, random bits of news and stuff. So hopefully this isn't like a replacement for a Nintendo Direct, because I really don't want to keep getting announcements on a freaking smartphone app in replacement of that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and then, this is, of course, Summer Game Fest week. It's officially over now, but for the last week, we've been kind of just inundated with showcases, just the way we like it.
Mm-hmm.
And last week, as Nick had said, we talked about PlayStation State of Play, which was I think set a nice stage for what was to come. Then we had Summer Game Fest, which is about like a 2-hour showcase, and it was quite a lot of games and stuff like that. And then on Sunday we had Xbox Game Showcase, which was followed by the Outer Worlds 2 and I'll surprise Grounded 2 Direct as well, a little tandem action.
Mm-hmm.
And then in between, there's also like a few other showcases, like the Future Game Showcase and Wholesome Games and PC Games. There's a few. I didn't get to go through all of them. I did watch Wholesome Games just because they're wholesome. What can I say? And so I'll briefly touch on those. But what we've done here today is assembled 10 games each, 10 big games that we are looking forward to. Our favorite games from Summer Game Fest. Both again the main show, but as well as like Xbox. And I will say, Nick, at the top of this, before we even get into it, that man, I really do wish that Nintendo had something really rounded out. But I gotta say, call me a shill, but I felt the lack of Ubisoft. I felt like my week was missing a Just Dance break to start the show, and some random kind of I think Ubisoft has a place in this week of announcements, and it sucks that they weren't able to make it. It's like the first time in a long time I think they weren't actually didn't have a showcase, and then also they tweeted out this weird Sam Fisher photo like a week before the showcase, and everyone was like, "Is it what are they trying to tell us here?" Nothing. There's not a single thing that in the showcases that had to do with Sam Fisher, as far as I remember. So I don't know what that was about.
Yeah,
but,
you mentioning it, like I don't even think they really showed up at any of the other press conferences. They've just been completely absent.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think they're currently in the process of recovering from their 2024, and I think kind of getting their financials in order as they prepare to launch. Like they launched this new company with like for all their IPs, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. But with that said, here we are. All right, Nick, we're going to go back and forth between us for our favorites. Do you want to start with honorable mentions, or do you want to save that for the end in case we substitute in a little bit?
Let's save that for the end, because I might have to draw on some of those for my list.
Sure. Okay. There is no particular order for my games, so
Same for
me. I'll let you take the lead.
Gotcha. Let's look at my list here. I'm gonna start with a bit of a weird one, because I don't know how much we'll have to say on it. But
okay.
I think that this trailer was incredibly creative. I think that the vibes that it put forth were very interesting. I also have no idea really what this game is. But me.
Scum?
No, it's not Scum.
Okay.
Me, and I love my titles. And so this was the trailer for There Are No Ghosts at the Grand.
Oh, Yes.
And
Yes.
this was in the Xbox show, and it
Hmm.
opens up, and it's kind of like I don't know if you would call it like a house flipper or a power wash simulator. It's like you
Yeah.
inherit this hotel, you're given a gun that blasts off wallpaper.
It does a whole it does everything. Like it organizes books. It
Yeah,
cleans it up. It makes yeah.
moves furniture, but it's all like all this is like happening while this like caretaker is singing like a reggae style like
Great
song.
song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like super catchy. It's honestly been stuck in my head this week. Like I'll just like start
100%.
whistling it to myself. But then it also takes this other turn to where it's like, okay, your character like kicks down a door and it's just like they don't suspect a thing. And it's like this very like
Yeah.
mysterious kind of thing. There's like puzzles where you're like drawing these symbols and like
Shapes
secret
on the
doors
wall.
open.
Yeah.
There's like weird Cthulhu-esque like tentacle monsters and like this pink dimension that you're going through and building platforms out of books. Like I said, I have no idea like what this game is really about, but it was a trailer that really stood out to me that had like a very strong sense of style. And so I think it was really interesting for that.
That one is also on my list, and yeah, that song alone immediately was like, oh, like this I see this groovy a little bit.
Hmm.
And then yeah, the premise, that was a well done trailer, and it really set the stage there uh, for what's to come. I do think it is similar to that like House Flipper 2 type of thing, but there is more mystery there to keep you maybe like hooked on a narrative more than just like yeah, oh, you're back and you're
Hmm.
you're fixing things, so yeah, that one looks awesome. And look, I love long titles, and so I would have easily expected this game to be called The Grand, but
Sure.
there are no ghosts at the Grand is
And I want to
beautiful.
ask one thing before we move on from it. And it's obviously there's the caretaker at the beginning, and then there's another part with like this woman that's singing, and
Singing,
music
yeah.
and dancing seems to be pretty kind of central to this. Do you think this is going to be like a musical game, or do you think that that's like kind of just like trailer
Oh,
fluff for this?
I hope so. I would. I really hope that this is a musical game in terms of like there's just even if it's just like oh, you're progressed through 25% of the story. Now here's a little musical number, and then you get back to the story.
Hmm.
I think yeah, I hope it is. I'm hoping. So I just looked up the Steam page. This is from Friday Sunday. That's a great. It's Friday spelled normally, and then SUNDAE. So like the the dessert, and
Gotcha.
it says inherit a crumbling English hotel and restore it by day. Restore it by day while battling ghosts by night. With a sardonic cat and a talking. Oh yeah, that the reveal too of that, like the narrator being the cat too, like where it
Hmm.
comes in. Like, only one you can trust is me. That was great. A talking power tool and a twisting supernatural plot. Oh yeah, there you go. This is a musical mystery unlike any other. Will you be able to hold it together while everything around you falls apart? That's a good one too. That's a good caption. 100%. Very much so. Looking forward to this one. I'm
Yeah.
glad we both. Nick and I watched all the big showcases except Xbox together. So, but
Hmm.
I'm glad we were able to get the same highlight there. Uh, you know what? You made my job easy, Nick, because that was one of the games that I had on my list. And again, no particular order here, but I'm gonna go with here. I'll go with one that's actually pretty high up on my list because it just looks awesome. So, kind of to set the stage, you can watch Nick and I react to the entire Summer Game Fest over on our Respawn Station TV. It's kind of where we throw up random clips and stuff, highlights, and pretty much the entire showcase. There's times like, oh yeah, there's Resident Evil. Is it? And then they had like these two bait and switches where like it's Resident Evil, but it's actually they're saying that it's not going to be Resident Evil. Um, and then there's this trailer that I saw, and I was immediately like, oh wait, this is Resident Evil, and it wasn't. This is from Team Clout, and it's called Ill, the narrative driven first person survival horror game that transports you to a sinister settlement with the goal of uncovering the unsettling truth behind its descent into bloodthirsty madness. Brace yourself for an intense body horror with an advanced dismemberment system, dynamic enemy behavior, complex weapons mechanics, and an immersive, interactive world and strategic survival and crafting, all contributing to an unforgettable, visceral journey into despair. This looked very, very, very much so like Resident Evil 7, especially 7. I mean, like it's first person horror, but it has like these really like it's strong lighting effects, really nice like environments. Even if it's not like crazy environments, it's like everything's detailed. Like there's a lot of debris on the ground and paper and everything. And this one was so from Team Cloud is developing it, I believe is published by Mundfish, who we'll talk about again a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Ill. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, it's good that you mention clutter and things in the environment, because the thing that stood out to me was the physics of these creatures, these like weird biofreak humanoid creatures, because constantly in the trailer they are highlighting them like bumping their heads into stuff and like knocking things over, and it seems like they are very like well implemented into their environment to the point that we kind of talked about it last week when we were talking about the Witcher tech demo, and how like interactions with characters can feel oftentimes a lot of very stiff. Like you mentioned like running into somebody with a box and the box like explodes or whatever. Like that's something that's very common in games. And this was just like, you watch it and it's like they're like slithering around and like, sliding out of holes in walls. They're like picking up things and throwing them at you, which again, that might not sound like the most revolutionary thing in the world, but they feel very realistically intertwined into their space.
And I feel like, like that they have weight to them at least. Again, the things could be tweaked, and this doesn't have a set release date, but like, there's a moment where like someone gets shot and like the body collapses and it hits the wall and it like falls, and it's like, oh, okay. And then there's one moment that made Nick cackle, where it was the end where it's like this baby demon's walking forward, and then the character just kicks it and it like knocks over like a few barrels or whatever, and it's like, oh, look, it's a very like physical, and there exists in that kind of world, and I think that does a lot to set the stage.
We have to talk about that final shot, because I think that's actually as much as I find it hilarious, that's a genius final shot for a trailer like this, because the entire trailer, I mean, you go watch other people's reactions too. People are like, ew, ew, ew. Like people are being grossed out. It's creepy. It's weird. There's like this weird gas mask dude with a giant gun that blasts into these guys. It's very gory, very dark, very disgusting. And then you have this one moment at the end of the trailer where it's this close up of this demented baby looking thing, and then it's just a kick to the face and it flies back. And it just it's such a lighthearted and like funny way to end this like trailer that makes you feel gross just watching it. And it really kind of, you can watch the entire trailer without that final scene, and I think you get like an idea of what they're going for and everything. But I feel like that period at the end is just kind of like, okay, this is a game that you're gonna have fun with, even though like
I was just gonna say it's like a punctuation mark at the end of the at the end of the trailer. I thought that was great. What a name, Ill, just Ill. Very interesting. And again, I still, even when they showed the title, I was like, oh, this is Resident Evil 9, isn't it? Because I was like waiting for like some way for like Ill to, and then like the Resident Evil to fade in or something. But no. Ill. There you go. All right. Back to you.
Let's see. What do I want to go to next? I'll stay in Summer Game Fest. This, I think, was the most visually impressed I was with a trailer out of all the showcases, and it's not for the game that you might be expecting. It was certainly was a surprise to me, and this is kind of why I love watching these showcases, is to find the games that I didn't know that I wanted, or that I'm completely surprised by that it exists. And this is a trailer for a game called Felt That Boxing. And the way that Jeff Keighley kind of teed this one up is that, he mentioned how he loves his puppets, big Muppets fan. They're always in the Game Awards and everything. And was talking about how all of this is running in Unreal Engine 5. And then the trailer starts, and it just straight up looks like photorealistic puppets.
Really,
Like
yeah,
it doesn't even look like a video game, I think, at times. Like there's maybe some shots in there where you can kind of tell, but the lighting is like perfect. The texturing and the animation on the puppets themselves are like perfect, which I guess makes sense. Like if you have a puppet, there's only so much that a puppet can move and articulate. So like that probably means that you can really dial in on matching that
sure,
animation to the real life physics and everything. But essentially,
yeah,
this is like Muppets Punch Out. It's like this
yep,
humorous
yep,
kind of thing where you're like an orphan that has to save this orphanage. You're going and training with this person, kind of Rocky style, to enter this boxing tournament, and then they show clips of like different mini games and like you going up against these other bigger puppets and like punching them, and it's like
yeah.
ragdolling and everything. It's maybe not the type of game that I would immediately, rush out and buy, but I think watching this trailer, like it made me laugh. It seriously just kind of impressed me visually because I was like, plenty of games try to go for like a photorealistic art style, and like
Right.
I'd say like there are certain games that kind of get there with compromises and stuff like that. But this was one where it was just like you could tell me that this was just a trailer for like a Muppets movie, and like I would
Yeah,
not
yeah.
think any different.
So this one is from Sans String Studio, and it's felt that boxing is a comedic boxing game set in the world where the charm of furry puppets collides with the fury of boxing. Step into the shoes of Ezra Fuzzy Wright, an unlikely hero with a big heart. His quest: battle his way through the tournament of million punches to save an orphanage. I mean, there's the setup right there. Yeah, this one looked really, really, just visually, it looks really awesome. And yeah, like the physics and everything of it looks really awesome as well. They actually specified that there's approximately an 8 to 12 hour campaign for this one, a story mode.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, definitely got my eyes on this one. And of course, any of the games that we're talking about, especially some of the indie games that we're mentioning here, if you have any interest in them, go and wishlist them because it helps them out a lot and kind of helps Steam, especially, kind of curate the where they belong on the list and who they push it out to. So there it is. Felt that boxing. Keep that in mind.
What's next for you?
Okay, I don't know if. See, I feel like we're you're going for a certain type, and I feel like if the what depending on what I go next, it'll be like we're contrasting each other on this one.
I think that
Um,
works. I mean, there was when we were doing the box art, I feel like we were chaining together like games a lot. So if we want to contrast this time, I think that works too.
so this one is a game, similar to what Nick was saying, a game that I had no idea of. It seems that some people had an idea of what it was. But prior, I actually don't remember if it was Summer Game Fest or Xbox Games Showcase I think it was Xbox actually. Now that I look at it, so it's called Moodang Two Hearts. It's from EVR Studio or Ever Studio. And the summary goes: in a unified Korea, mass terrorists strike at the heart of Seoul. Ji Jeong-tae, a soldier sent in to stop the attacks, stumbles upon a K-pop star named Gavi at the center of the unfolding crisis. As their stories intertwine, a chilling truth begins to take shape. For those of you who don't know or maybe can't picture it, this is sort of like it's like a shooter, and it has very good visuals and like just a whole overall strong visual aesthetic, like very Call of Duty-esque, but maybe not quite dialed to like the 10 that Call of Duty works at. There's a little bit of kind of rough edges, I'll say, that you can see. But that being said, there's some really cool mechanics here. It's actually, I'd probably say more so like a Splinter Cell. Maybe this is what Ubisoft was trying to hint at, because like there's gameplay of him like the soldier like climbing over pipes and like there's bad guys under him and he's just kind of a sneaking around. A lot, hand-to-hand combat, stealth, espionage. Like, there's moments where he's like crouching and you can see like people going over him too. So and there's also like some sort of like, I'm guessing it's like some sort of bioterrorism because they say terrorists specifically, and it
Mhm.
looks like there's zombies that are attacking. But yeah, this one really came out of nowhere. And if you guys know, I'm a huge fan of kind of really well done shooters, and I'm hoping the well done part lands. But it looks awesome, and visually and kind of the setup and premise wise, it looks really cool.
Yeah, this one to me was a little bit, I don't want to say like underwhelming. Like for me personally,
Sure,
it's just kind of like the vibe that didn't really do it for me. One kind of funny
yeah,
thing though, I was watching some reactions, and specifically I was watching a video from Mr. Matty Plays talking about the
sure,
showcase, and he mentioned that this one uh, felt like Resident Evil 6 to him. And
sure,
I
yeah,
kind of got
yeah,
that vibe in some of the animations, like when they're knocked down and like the camera angle is like kind of like looking up at enemies and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Like I kind of got that sensation also. Again, this is probably going to be leaps and bounds better than Resident Evil 6 because that game is historically not very good. But um
Hey, if you play Resident Evil 6 with a friend, it's not bad. It is. So this doesn't seem to be co-op. It seems that it's single player where you are switching between two different perspectives
mhm.
because you switch between and reading the description, it makes a lot more sense because if you're watching it, you're like, what's this like? It's like you're like fighting this tactical dude with like fucking military gear and a headset and everything, and then all of a sudden it's like this girl in a short skirt and a tank top, and it's like, what's
Mhm.
going on here? But she's a K-pop star and he's a that sounds like a a setup for like a romance. She's a K-pop star, and he's a hardened war criminal. No, no, not criminal, but like a military soldier. Um, yeah, no, this one looks really interesting to me. So I'll keep an eye out for this one, and hopefully it really strikes a chord with me when it actually comes out. There's no release date on this as of oh wait, set to arrive on 2026 for Xbox Series XS, Xbox PC, and it's an Xbox Play Anywhere title.
And I believe it's a Korean studio also. I heard a lot of people mentioning that.
Yes, yes, you are
So
correct. Yep,
yeah,
PVR Studio.
right on. I think I'll go with Mina the Hollower next. So this
Oh,
is
okay.
the next game from Yacht Club Games, famous for Shovel Knight, of course. And this game, we've known about it for a while. It was announced several years ago, and they've kind of just been cooking away at it. And
Yep.
finally got like a launch date. I think it's in October. I did not write that down, but I think it's sometime in
October
October.
31st,
31st.
2025.
Okay, cool. And yeah, this one, so Shovel Knight is kind of like it's like a 2D platformer mostly.
Yep.
It has different elements here and there depending on what kind of version you're playing, but at its core, it's a 2D platformer. Mina the Hollower is taking the same kind of retro sensibility, but this time it's more of like a top-down kind of Zelda-esque game, it looks like.
Yeah.
It looks very evocative of the Game Boy and Game Boy Color Zelda games, so like your Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons, or Link's Awakening kind of style. And yeah, I had written like a little tweet thread essentially talking about like brief thoughts on these, and the thing that stands out to me most about Yacht Club is how effortlessly they make that retro style look. It
Yeah.
Getting it to look like it belongs on that old hardware is very hard, and I feel like a lot of developers that try to do a retro style, there's nothing wrong with this, but I feel like a lot of them get excited about the modern features of game engines, and so it has a retro look, but that's like, it's like if you look at it and like you're familiar with games that run on like a Super Nintendo or an NES or something like that, it's like clearly this wouldn't be able to run on that hardware. But Yacht
Yeah.
Club, like Shovel Knight and Mina, they both look like you could say that this was a Game Boy Color game, and I would believe you. It's like how like
Yeah.
they've nailed it, from the font choice to the way that the characters animate on the screen and the enemies and all that. It's just looks like it's going to be a really fun time. And Shovel Knight is like extremely high quality, so to get a follow up finally after so long, they've had like multiple expansions and like new versions of Shovel Knight and stuff like that. To get a new game, I think is really exciting.
Yeah. So in this one, I don't have much to say about it, but I've not actually played a Yacht Club's game. But take control of Mina, renowned hollower, hurtled into a desperate mission to rescue a cursed island. Whip foes, burrow through the ground, and explore a pixel-perfect world in Mina the Hollower. Brand new game from the developers who brought you Shovel Knight. Again, it's roughly 4 months away as of when we're recording this. So right around the corner. Again, wish list if you have any interest.
And to circle back around real quick to soundtracks, Shovel Knight,
yep,
S tier soundtrack. So high hopes for Mina on that front.
Hell yeah. All right, next up for me, I have. Let's see. Also, let me. Actually, I'll wait. Next one is Acts, ACTS, Acts of Blood, not Acts of Blood. That is so hard to distinguish. I don't know why it didn't really like prize. Acts of Blood. This is a beat 'em up action 3D third person game that focuses on fast paced, brutal hand to hand combat set in a dystopian city of Bandung, Indonesia. This is a solo developer that's making this, and Jeff kind of pretty much teed it up as just like, hey, this is a solo developer making this from Indonesia, and it kicks ass. It's very much so like, for me, it reminded me a lot of the like Hong Kong cinema, and Hong Kong action cinema. Like if you watch Raid Redemption or something like that, had those kind of vibes. I know probably the gamers here would probably compare it to like Sifu, in terms of like the way it moves and acts. But yeah, this one looked really, really cool. Obviously, I'm really curious about if the story lands, because the story, it says, in this bustling city of Bandung, Hendra's life is torn apart when his family is slain by his father's business rival. Left alone and seeking justice, the college law student finds no help from the corrupt legal system that protects the killers. Discovering a powerful group behind the attack, Hendra decides to take revenge himself, determined to make them pay for their actions. Even that setup for that story is so Hong Kong action. It's like 1v100, it's like against all odds. It's pure just like resilience is going to get him through this, these hordes of people. And I really hope the story lands, because I think if it does, this could be a really cool game. My hope is that it's not just, oh, hey, here's a bunch of bad guys and some levels, have fun, beat them up. But that could be what it is. We don't know. But there's also parkour in it too, and anything with parkour, I'm always like, whoa, what? So yeah, that was a cool one.
I'm glad you brought that one up, because that was one that did stand out to me, but that I wasn't going to bring up personally. The fluid of the animations and the combat, I think obviously is kind of the standout here. I've not played Sifu, but I don't remember them highlighting like parkour or like platforming mechanics much in that game. And so I think that that's a really welcome addition to a game like this, to kind of change up the flow. So like if it is very combat heavy, you at least have like some platforming to kind of break that up and give you like a little bit of a reprieve, while still allowing it to feel like you're actively doing things and having more like action set pieces. Like they show him like jumping from one building to another building and stuff like that. You have to imagine there's going to be like chase sequences or something like that. So I think that was really cool. Initially, the trailer, the voiceover kind of took me aback a little bit. I was like, that sounds a little off, a little budget, but again, solo developer, it's just like you kind of have certain expectations with that. But yeah, it's like as soon as the gameplay kicks off, you're just like, oh no, this is really sick. So
yeah. And again, it's one of those things where like these games have, especially when you're working with a solo developer, there's certain shortcomings you have, but with how the modern engines and access to modern engines go, like, I mean, these people are like single developers are able to make some like really crazy looking stuff.
Yeah, so Acts of
Blood.
Let's see. What do
Yeah.
I want to do
I mean,
next?
I'm sure. I feel like there needs to be a tally of how many of these games are like from Unreal Engine alone. You know, because
Right.
I think the first game, the Felt one, that one's definitely Unreal.
Hmm.
Ill also, I believe, is Unreal. I think Mudang is also Unreal. So yeah, I think there's there's quite a few Unreal games in progress here.
Unreal Domination. um,
Yep.
this time I'm gonna break what I said we're doing, and I'll stick in similar
Okay.
kind of territory, but on the
Okay.
non-solo end of that. So one of the bigger announcements from the AAA side at Summer Game Fest came right before the show ender, and that was RGG Studios, previously known
Ah,
as Project Century, but now has the name of Stranger Than Heaven.
Stranger Than Fiction. Oh,
And
sorry, Heaven. Stranger Than Heaven. Yeah, yeah.
this game is really interesting. It you know RGG, obviously they pump out Yakuza and Like a Dragon games. Now
At
even
an impressive pace.
even spin-offs like Lost Judgment, or spin-offs of Like a Dragon, like The Man Who Erased His Name and stuff like that. There's all sorts of games in that series, and this seems to have some DNA with those games. Like, it seems like there's going to be brawler kind of combat. They show like using weapons and stuff in a couple shots of, combat in here. But what really kind of intrigues me and wowed me is the world design. So this game, again, was originally announced as Project Century at the Game Awards, and in that trailer it was set in 1915, and it was very, like, kind of, I won't say feudal Japan because that's obviously not correct, but it's a lot older, like dirt streets and stuff like that. And this trailer is in 1943, I believe. And so you get, this feels more like noir jazz clubs, like speakeasy. He's walking out into the street and then there's just neon lights everywhere. And
Yeah.
the world design just looks really cool. And I really dig the kind of vibe that this trailer has, where it's, brooding, kind of, noir-esque, I guess, story that's popping up. But having that first trailer and this trailer now, it's like, okay, with the name, like, or with the code name like Project Century, it seems like this is going to be taking place over 100 years, maybe something similar to that, and that it's the same game, the same location, but changing over time, which I think is a really interesting kind of, I don't know if you would call it gimmick or like a design philosophy. We've had games that have tried similar things, like Mafia, for instance, where, you'll start at one point in time, fast forward a couple years, and like advertisements change, or like cars on the streets will change. But I feel like the vibe that I get from these trailers is that there's going to be much more dramatic changes to the level and like the world as the game progresses.
Yeah. So there's actually no official like Steam page or anything for this game, but from what it's, the internet sleuths have sleuthed, that yeah, so the original game, or the when it was revealed, was 1915, and then this is 1943. There's also apparently like there's another reference to 1929. So at least three different time periods is kind of what's confirmed. But yeah, with the name like Project Century, that makes sense that it would be some sort of, yeah, time. Not, I don't know if it's necessarily time travel, but like just a time jump in
Mm-hmm.
there as well. Uh, all right, now next up, since you switched it up, I'll switch it up as well. So this is actually, I think, the only game that I have that is not from the two big showcases. This is from Wholesome Games. And I don't know, I don't think this was the announcement of it, but it was the first time that I've seen it. But this one's called Fishbowl. It's from I Miss My Friends Studio, and it's Fishbowl is a slice of life coming of age story told over a month. So video call loved ones, work from home as a video editor. Uh, and sort through puzzles to rediscover childhood memories. Do care tasks and get to know yourself better one day at a time. This one looked really, just kind of like really sweet, and I feel like after ill and all these games that made you feel fucking dirty, maybe you need something like this to kind of cool yourself off. So yeah, Fishbowl, a little cozy game. Again, wish list this if you have any interest. It's also on. You can also wish list on PlayStation as well, I believe. So there you
Nice.
go. A quick hitter.
Yeah, I actually missed Wholesome Games. I didn't end up seeing anything from that show. So
It was not a whole lot of surprises, but I did kind of, before the podcast, I kind of had it going while I was doing my workout. So I'll be like, oh,
Earthquake.
I do like one rep and be like, oh, let me watch this trailer, and then do like one rep and what's this trailer? So yeah.
Nice.
All right, back to you.
Let's see here. I'm gonna
Also,
go
in the background, does it just say moo? Is it just say moo, or is there more of that?
Oh, on the Discord it says moo. On here I see the M and half the O. So
Oh, okay.
no, you're safe. That would be
Okay,
pretty
okay.
good though. I'm gonna go with one that I am very excited about and has a bit of
Okay.
controversy right now. And that
Oh
is
boy.
The Outer
Splitgate
Worlds
2.
2. No, not Splitgate.
Okay. Why is there controversy around it?
Well, the big controversy around it has to do with the price tag.
Oh,
And
80
that
to I see.
this is the first announced game that is going to be $80 from Microsoft after them announcing that they were going to be raising prices for their games.
Yes.
Which is unfortunate that they are being thrown under the bus in this way.
Right.
I think many people, myself included, imagined Call of Duty will get announced and that will obviously be $80. They can take that brunt.
Right.
But Double A
I think
Obsidian Outer Worlds being the $80 poster child right now was not something I had on my
Exactly.
bingo card.
Like you would think that, like, from a conceptual, like, okay, business point of view, all right, of all the franchises we have, because like whatever the first one you announced, right? Like Nintendo did it to Mario Kart because they know Mario Kart would stand that test. Like, oh yeah, throw as much shit on Mario Kart, it still sells consoles.
Mhm.
So like, for them to look at, oh, Call of Duty, or yeah, this small little AA game, let's do that one. Especially from a team that is clearly working so incredibly hard this year to pump out not just one, not just two, but 3 games.
Yeah.
But yeah, Outer Worlds 2.
It kind of it is really unfortunate, and like I've already noticed, like all the trailers and stuff, the comment sections are just $80 this, $80 that. And it's like, yes, that sucks. I'm also gonna divorce myself from that real quick and be like, this looks like such a great improvement over the first game. So they had at the Xbox showcase, they had a trailer to open up the showcase for the game, and then they also had the deep dive afterwards. And this trailer, like the first half of it, like I was just like, okay, this is kind of Outer Worldsy, not really that surprising. There's all this like corporate speak and everything. And then it gets into the second half, and it has this very like oldies style song playing with scenes of action and characters and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is the Obsidian that I like. This is the spiritual successor to Fallout that the Outer Worlds was kind of pitched as. And like I'm getting that vibe really heavily now. And then into the direct afterwards, the deep dive, the stuff that they're talking about in this game, it's like, this is what Outer Worlds 1 should have been, I feel like.
Sure.
Coming from somebody that is a fan of Outer Worlds 1, I platinumed that game and got both the DLCs and played through those. So like I played through that game.
Yeah.
But I'm also kind of the mind that a lot of people that have played it, where it's just like, it was good, but it maybe didn't hit the highs that it was kind of aiming for. Outer Worlds 2 seems like they're going for it in all the different ways. So I don't want to take like forever on Outer Worlds, but I am going to highlight a couple of the really interesting gameplay changes for 2
Yeah.
that they highlighted, which is a huge one for people that played the first game. You can now play in third person or first person. So in the first game,
Oh,
it
was the
was
first person? First one was just first person.
just first person. You could see what your character looked like in the menu, but you had no way to pull the
Okay.
camera out or anything like that. Now you can play in
Interesting.
first person, you can play in third person. There's animations in third person for, all the movement and everything like that. It feels very Bethesda game-esque, as that probably shouldn't come as a surprise. But yeah,
Yeah.
huge change for the second game there. The next change is one that I love so much, and I'm glad that they actually highlighted it, because it was a problem that I and many people had with Outer Worlds 1, but also Starfield. And the Outer Worlds 2, similar to Fallout New Vegas, is incorporating a radio system in the game. And so there's going to be three separate radio stations, and they mentioned that there's like probably around 20 tracks on each station, and they are aligned with like, different factions and everything. And it's all like custom music for these stations. So it's all, again, oldies kind of vibe. I think the song that they use in the first trailer at the front, I think is a custom song based on some of the lyrics. They mention things like bits, which are the money in the game, and like thematically,
Sure.
it's very like, very similar to the themes of the game. So there's going to be custom tracks on there. There's also going to be like DJs that will comment on things that you do in the game. And so I think that's a huge element of that. That's like kind of background, but it's just like something to listen to while you're going around this world, these worlds and everything, or like getting into combat and having like, a fun kind of jolly song happening. It goes a long way to setting a memorable kind of vibe, and just like that kind of Fallout dichotomy. Like, I mean, Todd even talked about it when they announced Fallout 4, when it's like you're pulling out your gun, you're looting, and the perfect song pops up on the Pip-Boy. It's like there's just something about that kind of combination in the gameplay that I really appreciate. So I'm really glad to hear that that's going to be a feature in the new game. And the last kind of thing that I'll touch on, there's a ton of other stuff, obviously, that I can go into, but again, I don't want to take up too much time on Outer Worlds. But the weapons, there's a ton more variety, it looks like, in the weapons. There was only like a couple of like different guns in the first game. It seems like it's way expanded in this one. They all have their own wacky designs. They talked about specifically making custom reload animations for a lot of the guns to give them character. And then in addition to that, they also talked about, the science weapons, which were a big thing in the first game, which have like weird, wacky, different mechanics to them. So they mentioned a tumor gun that you can shoot enemies. It shoots tumors at enemies that'll like poison them and explode, but then they'll stick to the environment and you can eat them for like a health buff. There's a disco melee weapon that kind of like Hi-Fi Rush has like a metronome, and if you attack on the beat, it gives you, bonus damage and stuff.
Nice.
So seems like they're doing some really cool stuff with the weaponry, and it's actually going to be much more impactful than it was in the first game.
Is it true? I don't know. I didn't actually fully like watch the direct afterwards, but is there like traits that like if you're crouching and like
this is
like so
yeah. I was
okay,
gonna say,
so there's apparently a trait in the game. There's a few traits that are like, have odd drawbacks. So like there's a stealth trait that kind of helps you when you're crouched, like to not be seen. But then every time you stand up, your knees pop, or not every time, but like occasionally there's a chance that every time you stand up, there's a chance that your knees will pop, and then enemies will be alerted about it. There's also like a kleptomaniac one where you can like steal stuff easier, but then there's a chance as you're just walking through the map that if you look at something, your character will just automatically steal it without your input, and then that could screw you over.
Yeah, this was the other thing I was going to bring up, and it's specifically the flaw system, which was in Outer Worlds 1. And essentially, the game would recognize if you're doing something, they would give you the opportunity to select a flaw. And essentially, it's like it will increase, it'll give you a buff of something that you're utilizing a bunch of, but it'll also give you like a downgrade. and this is just like a more refined, more expanded version of those. So yeah, that bad knees one is like hilarious. The
Yeah.
basically it's when you're crouched, you move faster, and then
Oh, okay,
when you
okay.
stand up, the knees will pop and it can alert enemies. The kleptomaniac one you mentioned was really funny too, and there's a great one called Sun Gazer, and you should go back and watch this three because they have Ben Schwartz in as like
Oh,
he's supposed to be
Sonic.
Mark, who's the head of sequels at Obsidian, and so they have like funny bits with him and like developers and stuff that kind of set some of this stuff up. But this other one called Sun Gazer, it's literally if you stare at the sun, it gives you this flaw, and if you take it, it makes like it covers the game in like bloom and light shafts and everything. And essentially, the developer, when he's explaining it, he's like, "Yeah, it pretty much becomes pretty unplayable if you select this one." And so it's just like fun stuff like that they just kind of throw in there that has a lot of charm, and I think goes a long way for making some memorable replayability moments where it's like, okay, I'm gonna have like my just standard character for my first run, but like this time I'm gonna take every flaw that the game gives me and see how this devolves.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to put a
No,
bow on it, I'm
yeah.
personally really excited for it. The $80 does sting, but I'm a fan of these games. I liked the first game, and pretty much everything they showed about the second game, I'm like, yeah, it looks like Outer Worlds 1, but just better in almost every way. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and it's $80, but I think they're really trying to push the Game Pass idea so that you don't have to. It's an easier pill to maybe swallow, but I don't think that's really landed with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Outer Worlds 2 looks cool. I'm curious. I've played like maybe an hour or maybe an hour and a half of the first one, and I've been meaning to go back, but I don't know. With Outer Worlds 2, maybe I'll just get to the second one. And I don't think there's a huge continuity type of thing in terms of like, oh, you have to play the first one. So
No, it's specifically, they've mentioned it in the direct. It's a completely different like system of planets and everything, and you're
oh,
a completely
okay.
different character. So there's like things like brands and stuff that obviously make an appearance,
Sure.
but I think they're two completely separate stories and
Yeah.
everything.
Speaking of two completely separate stories, my next game seems to be just that. It's one where the first game kind of piqued my interest initially, but I didn't kind of really give it too much time or too much thought. It was a busy time, like a busy season, so I didn't actually get around to playing it. And then here we are with a surprise sequel announcement, and it totally caught me off guard. Atomic Heart 2 is an action adventure role playing game set in a living world rich with possibilities and heavy emphasis on story, role playing elements, and player freedom. It's a sequel to Heart, and relates new events unfolding in the retro futuristic universe of an alternate history. This time, the action play takes place on a global scale. They also say, I believe, I don't know the exact wording that they use. I believe it's like a spin off or.
They
Yeah, I
said
think they said as
spiritual successor in the show.
Yes, you were correct. Spiritual successor, which makes me really think like you don't have to play the first one at all. But yeah, this looked so crazy. This is from Mundfish, who had three things at Summer Game Fest. This was one of them. Ill was another, and then the third one was essentially another Atomic Heart project called The Cube, which is like an MMO RPG type of thing. But man, this just like I don't know how much of this will actually be what the game will look and play like. I've heard that the Atomic Heart itself looks pretty nice. The first one that came out again last year, I think. So really recently,
Hmm.
but it just looks so fucking cool with the amount of variety of gameplay that they have. They really show off the scale and kind of diverse in environments that I really hope that they stick that landing. And it is a little bit weird in terms of like how unusually pervy it is, but like you know what, I can't complain about that. If anything, it's a feature. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it, even though I have no idea or interest. I don't even know what the first Atomic Heart is or it is about, but
Hmm.
just by itself, at looking at this, looks cool.
Yeah, I kind of have interest in Atomic Heart, but it's also like a weird one where it's like sometimes I look at it and it's just like, well, basically how you were describing it. You mentioned that it's like, retro future and stuff, and kind of leading up to the first game's launch, like I kind of got a lot of like BioShock-esque vibes from
Yeah.
that game. And so it's definitely something that is like up my alley. But then there's other times when I look at gameplay of it and I'm just like, I don't know about it. The sequel, I think, I mean, cool that the first one did well enough that it's getting a sequel and everything. This trailer tonally was very confusing to me, though, because it's like, I remember the first game, and maybe this is what the spiritual successor aspect of that is that they mentioned, but it's like, I look at it and it's like, it has like kind of post-apocalyptic, like weird alt future kind of vibes, but then they have like this, high energy Queen song playing in the trailer. And then, like you mentioned, it has, sexy robots, and it kind of has like these bar scenes that reminded me of like Cyberpunk and stuff. So it's a very genre and tone mashup. So yeah, definitely an interesting game for sure. That got announced, and probably one of the more like notable sequels that got a trailer this time.
I agree. And they say get ready for dangerous new adventures that will redefine the gameplay experience and raise the bar for the genre's capabilities. Well, yeah, we'll find out.
It's a bold claim.
Yeah, it is. No release date on this one yet, but probably I don't. I would imagine at least like 2027 or something like that for this to actually come out. Maybe the Cube would be a little bit sooner if those assets and everything are kind of already predetermined. They're kind of dropping them into a cube shape. But yeah, Atomic Heart 2. All right, there you go.
Let's see here. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm halfway through mine.
Yep.
Let's do. I'm gonna do
one. We should also say, like, do you have any like? So I'm trying my best to focus on games that are mostly new announcements. Obviously, like, there's certain games like Stranger Than Heaven. It's announced, but like that was just like, hey, we're working on it, was what they announced before, and now it's like, hey, here's the title, this is what we're doing. So I tried to avoid certain games with like for me, like, Dying Like the Beast, that one looked really cool, but we know that like it's just we're catching up on it, like Mafia, the Old Country, again, looks awesome. It's already on my list, so that stuff I didn't fully integrate here because I was just like, I don't want to reiterate too much.
Yeah. Like, it's good that you mentioned that. Like, one of my honorable mentions is like Mouse PI for Hire, but it's like I've talked about that too, right? And that's exactly the same thing. It's like it's on my list. It's been on my list for 5 years now. So,
yep.
I will give this one. I wasn't originally going to bring this one up, but this will tie into some of our previous episodes. Drinkbox announced a game called Blighted.
Blighted.
Which, if you are familiar with Drinkbox, they made the Guacamelee games, and what was the other one? Was it Nobody Saves the World? Was that their other one?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and I played Guacamelee 1 a couple months ago. I talked about it on the podcast. And Blighted is this, like, I guess I would call it like a Diablo-like almost. Like, it's an action game. It's 3D. It kind of has that like isometric-y kind of top-down perspective. And it has that kind of very saturated Drinkbox art style to it. It's about like this weird demon creature that eats brains and like is, stealing people's dreams or something, if I remember properly. But yeah, it's maybe not like a genre that I have too much experience with, the sort of like Diablo-esque like action games in that way. But that studio, I think, is wickedly talented, especially with their art design. And so I think that them tackling like a 3D game and kind of translating that art style is what really made this one stand out to me.
So it's described as, or the Steam page says, battle your way through a psychedelic Western nightmare to reclaim the memories of your people in this action RPG from the creators of Guacamelee. Harness the power of the deadly, reality-altering blight and unravel the mysteries of a twisted world. And just for fun fact, it is tagged as a Metroidvania Souls-like. There you go.
It's popular these
That's all we.
days.
Yeah, yeah. 2026 for this one. Nothing else. We don't really know much else. That was a quick glance.
Mhm.
Anything else you want to say about it?
Nah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm only really basing it off of Guacamelee 1, and I liked that, and I want to play 2, so definitely one to keep an eye out on.
All right. We're in the second half, and I'll try. I think we're getting to some of the titles where we don't necessarily have a whole lot, maybe, to say about all of them. All of them.
There's one that I know that you and I both have that we'll probably talk a little bit
100%.
on.
Yes, yeah, 100%. Again, I'm not mentioning mixtape because it's appeared at several showcases already, but mixtape looks so fucking radical. And so I'm looking forward to that one. Okay. Let's go with another little indie darling to start off my second half here. This is Discounty. I lied earlier. I think this one is also from the Wholesome Games Showcase. But Discounty is publisher P-Cube, who we've talked about a few of their games before, and it's developer Crinkle Cut Games. Manage your own discount supermarket. Get caught up in a small town drama, organize and plan your shop's layout, and strike lucrative trade deals as you expand your secretive aunt's business empire. Selling more frozen fries will surely heal this broken community, right? This one's coming out August 21st, 2025. So it is dated, unlike some of the other stuff we've been talking about. And yeah, look, the simple way to describe it, I would recommend checking out the trailer. It sets up this nice kind of cool vibe. It looks really nice. Like the color palette is very, very pleasing. But the layman's term description is that it's sort of like, like Stardew Valley, where you're like in the city at the start of the game, and your aunt essentially is like, hey, do you remember, like, you used to, like, I have this store, and you used to come by when you were younger. You don't like the city, and I need help running the store. Why don't you come and help me with the store? And so you're starting this discount store. There's this discount supermarket, and then you can kind of customize how the supermarket looks. You can interact with other people, and it just looks really nice. So it's coming out in just like 2 months now, and definitely one to keep an eye out on. It really caught my eye at the Wholesome Games Direct or Wholesome Games Showcase. One of those. Wholesome Games.
Right on. I have one that's not even on my list that I think I'm going to sub out one of mine for, because
Sure.
it kind of speaks to one of my interests with games, but or like
Talking about scum.
a genre or theme. Yeah, shitting hard. That's what I'm talking about. This was from Day of the Devs, which
Oh, sure.
I like half watched. I didn't watch all of it, but the game that they opened up on is a game called Snap and Grab, and essentially it's like a heist game mixed with a photography game. And so the kind of like footage that they're showing from, memory, I only watched it the one time, but you have this camera and they're at like a penthouse party or something like that, and you go in and you're kind of like the recon. Essentially, you're taking pictures of like what you're gonna try to steal. You take pictures of like guards and like other threats that could, end up.
What'd you say it was called?
Snap and Grab.
Snap and Grab. Oh, I see.
And you like take pictures of like cameras and stuff like that, and then I guess you go back at a certain point and you plan your heist essentially with these pictures and the intel that you gather from going in there and taking all these pictures. And I just thought that was a really interesting kind of gameplay concept. Specifically, like, what I was alluding to earlier is that I really like the heist kind of genre, and so I like when games try to do new things with that. And so the idea of like being able to plan your own heist and literally everything that you're planning is like stuff you went out and got, like specifically. It's like a new kind of like role that you don't really get in other heisting games like a Payday or like a GTA. Like they
Right.
have the setup part in like GTA where you go and like steal a car or like steal outfits and stuff. But then really it's
Right.
all in service of like a bombastic kind of, heist. Or like in Payday you have like the loud stuff where it's like very combat heavy, and then you have the stealth kind of role where you're sneaking around and trying to not be caught. This is kind of like a different type of role in that type of game. And so I think that's what stood out the most to me. And like it has like a nice clean looking art style. And so I think that one's definitely one that I'm going to be keeping an
So
eye on.
Snap and Grab is from No Goblin. It's published by Annapurna, but is developed by No Goblin, who've previously made a game called Roundabout. I believe that was their debut game, which is kind of like a B movie. It's sort of like a 70s B movie game, is how it's described.
Hmm.
They also, I think, more popularly made the game that I think a lot of people recognize them for is 100 Foot Robot Golf. It's an arcade golf game. And this one is described as do crimes using only your camera and your crew. In Snap a Grab, explore a puzzle adventure world where any photo you take could be the key to cool crime success. Travel to exotic locations, photograph treasures, and reveal threats, then combine your photos in unique ways to create a rad heist plan. So there you go. Oh, you're Nifty Nevada. You're a world famous fashion photographer. Wait,
Nice.
it's a female protagonist? Ugh, this game's woke. Oh boy. All right. Next one for me is so this one I believe was at the Xbox game. Oh, sorry, no, the Summer Game Fest, I believe, because this was at Xbox Game Showcase. They surprised everyone and was like, "Hey, Obsidian's making Grounded 2," but this was sort of like Grounded 2, but like but without before we knew Grounded 2 was happening. This is Infinitesimals. It's from Epic Games Publishing and Qubit Studios developing. As leader of a once elite squadron torn apart by disaster and scattered across a hostile world, you must locate, rescue, and reunite your crew to rebuild your strength and bring the fight to the hostile machines hunting you down. It looks really cool. I mean, it's sort of like a third person action game, or like a tactical third person action game. And it just, the game is definitely like, I compared it to Grounded, but if you haven't seen the trailer itself, it's not that art style at all. It's very like, it has that miniature kind of like, feel of Grounded. That's kind of where I'm comparing it, but it's very sci-fi, has a lot of like, I don't know if Halo, like there's a lot of different kind of sci-fi aspects to it, and it looks really, really, really cool. Uh, I mean, just check out the trailer; you'll find out more for yourself. But there's a lot here that I saw someone describing it as sort of like a Buzz Lightyear game, and honestly,
Hmm.
that's a good way to sell it, I think, because you are like a small like action hero that's taking like anything that like there's beetles that look gigantic obviously
Hmm.
in this kind of fight. So yeah, infinite. Oh, and you know what, I'll say the design sensibilities are sort of like Dune in a way, with the way certain technology and stuff looks. But yeah, there you go, Infinitesimals. Of course that does mean that it's coming exclusively to PC Epic Games or Epic Game Store, but I don't know what the console release situation is, but definitely PC for Epic Game Store.
Hmm. Yeah, I've not played many of those, the like, shrunk down kind of games. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
that's a fun world to explore. Like you kind of played Hypercharge a while back,
Mm.
and that was also something that kind of like, toy scale, like your levels are massive rooms in like a house or something like that. And I think that's always a fun kind of artistic challenge to try to
Yeah.
tackle with a game.
I, I mean, I played Grounded 1 when it was in early access, so before it was like, what it was. And also like Grounded is an interesting situation of because the first game started off in game preview, but it was like a team of like 14 people or 15 people that were making that. And in Obsidian, there was like a small team that was making Grounded, and then it just happened to be that it was so good that they're coming back for Grounded 2, and it's clearly a much bigger kind of scale. Yeah, I mean, actually, still small scale, but like a bigger play area that you're working with,
Hmm.
and clearly a bigger team as well. At least it seems like it. If not, this small team is really cranking it out. But
It's actually a code
yeah.
development, I think, because in the direct, it's
Oh, right.
Obsidian and
Yeah, yeah.
Eidos Montreal working on it, which is very
Yes. Yeah,
intriguing.
yeah. Yep, you were correct. So, uh, again, I haven't played the first one in its entirety since it was like the actual like 1.0 came out, but
Hmm.
maybe again, it's another thing. Maybe I'll just go to Grounded 2. Though I think Grounded 2 is also going through game preview, so
Yeah,
it's not a 1.0 just yet.
gotcha.
All right, Nick.
Let's see here. I have one big game. I have one game
Okay.
that I think you have, obviously, and then I have the smaller one. Are we tackling the one we both have
The,
last, or are we
yeah,
talking
yeah,
the big
yeah.
one? Okay,
We'll we'll hit it last, and then we'll have honorable mentions to kind of like round it out. I think. Yeah.
cool. So I will go next with Keeper. This was in the
Makes sense. Makes
Xbox
sense.
showcase. This is coming from Double Fine Productions. Obviously,
Yep.
kind of. I don't know if exploded is the right term, but I think grew in popularity after Psychonauts 2 specifically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Psychonauts 2 was my game of the year in 2021. I think that game is incredible. And
And you can read his review over on respawnstation.com.
exactly. And this is a very different type of game, but to be expected of Double Fine. They try to really change up what they're working on with every release, I think. And I think that's
Yeah.
evident in that Psychonauts 2 was their first sequel and they've been around for, 2 decades plus now. So, Keeper is kind of like you play as this lighthouse that has legs and
And like a dodo bird on it
yeah, and a
or something
dodo
like or some sort
bird,
of bird.
and it's kind of like, I guess, like a puzzle adventure game. Maybe that's kind of the vibe that I get from the trailers. You're kind of going through these environments. Sometimes like the dodo goes into like an egg and like, I guess, is afraid from enemies, and you kind of like transport it into
Yeah.
areas. There's like puzzle solving. You like use the lens of the lighthouse to shine light on stuff in the environment. It's maybe not my preferred genre of game that I would have liked to see as a follow-up to Psychonauts 2, but I think visually this is another game that I think is like incredible art direction and like visual fidelity. Like there's this shot where it's like going through like these trees or something, and you see like up into the background, and like I don't even know
Yeah.
exactly what you're looking at, but it just like looks crazy. And
Yeah.
yeah, just cool to finally see something new from Double Fine, because they have been essentially radio silent since Psychonauts 2. So they've been cooking on this
Yeah.
for a while, and at this point
And it's almost out.
they won me over with Psychonauts 2. So yeah, I'm definitely going to give it a try.
So this comes out October 17th, 2025. On an island in the long lost sea, a forgotten lighthouse stands dormant in the shadow of a distant mountain peak. As withering tendrils spread and coalesce, it awakens, taken with a mysterious sense of purpose and joined by a spirited seabird. It embarks upon a heartening tale of unlikely companionship, an odyssey of mystifying metamorphosis, and an unexpected journey towards the center of the island into realms beyond understanding. From Lee Patty and Double Fine Productions, creators of Stackling, Headlander, Rad, and Psychonauts, Keeper is a beautiful and surreal third person atmospheric puzzle adventure and a story told without words.
So yeah,
There you
it
go.
sounds really awesome, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one.
All right. Number 8, I think, for me. Let's see here. Obviously, we're saving the big one for the big finale. And so I will say that I have been looking for a reason to use my VR headset more. And this was a surprise because I did not expect to see Deadpool VR coming out. So Deadpool VR, again, don't know much about it. We saw some gameplay. It looks very Deadpool, very Ryan Reynolds, including his voice, at least in the trailer. And
No,
it
actually, you
looks.
were right in the reactions. It's Neil Patrick Harris playing Deadpool.
Oh, okay.
I didn't hear that, but I went back and
Oh,
listened to it, and Jeff
wow.
definitely says that at the end. So
Okay, yeah. So Neil Patrick Harris does a very good job at Deadpool there, and it looks there's a lot of personality to it. Very much so like like I think trailers for this kind of stuff can be a little bit misleading because they're trying to cram as much quips and jokes into it as possible. In reality, it'll be a little bit more spaced out. So, which is at least my hope because I don't want to be like I don't want to finish the game and be like, God damn it, shut up, like like that would suck. But there's like there's certain even cool setups that they have. Like one thing we picked up on was like, he's like Deadpool is headless, but like you're looking at him, but because his head is like because you are the head, and so like stuff like that is an interesting way to play around with like because that's stuff that you can not exclusively, but like you can do with Deadpool, and it makes sense because it's like, oh yeah, he doesn't have a head, sure, he's
mhm.
still kicking. So yeah, Deadpool VR was not expecting it at all, and also shout out to Boss Man for showing up, for crawling onto stage or crab walking onto stage to give that little intro.
Yeah, this one's a really weird one for me personally. Like, because I've played the Xbox 360 slash PS3 Deadpool
Yeah,
game,
with Nolan North.
and
Yeah,
it kind of gave me that vibe, like where it's like a
sure.
VR game
Yeah,
that maybe isn't like the highest budget VR game. Not saying that in a loving way. Like, I'm
yeah,
not like
yeah.
trying to drag the game or anything, but I can see where the fun can be had in a Deadpool VR game for sure. Like with the hyper violence and all that. Like I think there's definitely. I mean, hell, the Nolan North game was pretty good as far as like having
Yeah.
good gaming related like jokes and stuff. Not only in the writing but also the level design. So I think it'll be a fun time.
I don't know if you picked up on it yourself when you were watching it, but it sort of like at least in aspects, that Deadpool VR game looked like it was more in the art style of Borderlands than the new Borderlands game. It certainly had that like hand drawn kind of
Uh huh.
I don't know what's the word not like the weird outline stuff that
Cell
Borderlands is kind
shaded.
of famous for. Cell shaded, that's the fucking word. Yeah, this is from Twisted Pixel Games, and just to kind of give you guys the rundown. Feel what it's like to go deep inside Deadpool and Marvel's Deadpool VR, an original game developed by exclusively for MetaQuest 3 and 3S. Contracted by Mojo with the promise of making money, like a lot of money, Deadpool sets out to capture villains from the Marvel universe. The merc with the mouth soon realizes he shouldn't have so hastily signed the contract. Will he survive or thrive in this journey to become the Mojo verse's most famous interdimensional streaming star? Oh snap! What a
I have
sentence.
bad news for them. If they were trying to go for lots of money, I think VR was not the way to go with that. But who knows? Maybe I'll be proven wrong.
Yeah, yeah. All right, back to you.
So, as I mentioned before, if we're saving the other one for last, this was probably, if I had to pick one game from
Yep.
everything, this is certainly in my top three. It might be my game of all the shows, though. And
Oh
that
shit. Okay.
that was Clockwork Revolution.
I knew it. I knew it was gonna. I was waiting. I was like, huh. Well, he has got to have it on there. Sure.
So
From In Exile.
from In Exile. This got announced a couple years ago at an Xbox showcase, and at the time, coming from In Exile, we kind of had assumptions it was going to be like an RPG, known for the Wasteland games. If you're not familiar,
Yep.
it was like a first-person game. It had this kind of like 1910s esque style that like Bioshock Infinite had. And so people were like, "Oh, it's like a new Bioshock Infinite," kind of myself included, maybe with some more RPG elements.
Yep.
Goes radio silent for a while, gets essentially like re-revealed, I would say, here with a lengthy like 5-minute trailer, which I know maybe rubbed you and Alexa a little bit of the wrong way in the reactions that I caught. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
for me personally, I just think that this is the quintessential game that it's like I see it in a showcase and it's like I want to play that. Like
yep.
it speaks to a lot of my personal tastes. Like I love just again Bethesda Obsidian style first person kind of shooter RPGs. Like it's just something that is like comfort food for me.
Hi-fi.
And not to mention like time travel elements, so they have like it seems like it's going to have some wider consequences in the actual narrative and the level design for like different time travel kind of things. But on the moment to moment level, it reminded me a lot of Singularity. If you remember that game from the 360 and
Oh, yes.
PS3, that also had like active
Yeah.
like time manipulation kind of things. And
Yeah.
so it's this very
Singularity
interesting.
that was the game I remember. I think is you reviewed it for the old your old channel. Is that right or no? Is that a
Probably
different
that
game?
would have been around that time that I was playing
Okay,
those.
okay.
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like it has like a lot of DNA in here. It has RPG mechanics. It has Singularity. It has Bioshock. It has like you know, just like it's a big mix mash of stuff that they're showing here. But then like
Yeah.
when they show like shots of like exploring the world, it's like the world looks really interesting to explore. The characters look like really out there, and like I guess what they're showing in the trailer are like the villains of the game because they're all like,
Yep. The
bad
knob.
people and stuff. Yeah. And so kind of like a humorous setup. The It has a very strong art style, but it also kind of like it's not cartoony, I'd say, in a way. Like it has that
Yeah.
like kind of fidelity that you would expect for like a modern AAA game. And the one thing that I don't think was conveyed super well in the trailer, but I think some post, analysis or explanations came out. You are like a named character named Morgan, which they're doing the Prey thing where it's like, pick a gender neutral name so you can have your character creator and everything. And yeah, you kind of like you're I don't even know really how to describe the story. Like the trailer, I will
So
concede that it's a bit
the
messy in its presentation, but
yeah. So the description says embark on a grand adventure in the steampunk metropolis of Avalon, wielding an incredibly wielding an incredible invention that allows you to travel into the past and influence key events, altering the course of history. Um, and yeah, so okay, so here's my thoughts, and I should kind of preface this. I like sci-fi, but steampunk has never landed for me. I've never like really clicked with that specific aesthetic. I know it's huge. There was even a game on the 3DS that like I picked up and I was like, oh, this is like, I'll play this because it's steampunk. It's the first time playing steampunk, and the game was fine, but I bounced off of it fast. I heard so many people were talking about it too. Like, oh, this is a great steampunk game. So that's like the setup. But then I was watching the gameplay, and the first like 2 minutes, I was like, oh, this looks cool. It has like again that very like a. It's I felt that it was sort of like a like a Dishonored, but like it moves a little bit slower. But I can definitely say like a Bethesda-esque kind of gameplay as well, in terms of like how it just kind of plays and the gunplay and gameplay and stuff like that. But and it has like the Outer Worlds sort of humor, like the Obsidian's sense of humor as
mhm.
well. But yeah, look, I get it. I was watching the Phil Spencer on the podcast on Xbox after the show, where which he does in like a beach chair and like next to a kiddie pool because it's like for
76.
for 76, yeah.
Yeah.
But he mentions like they gave this game some time because it's in exile and they hadn't seen it in a while, so like you got to give it a showcase. But man, that trailer was so long. I feel like I don't know, it needed like a different editor for me to like get hooked because like it shows the points, but it takes so long to show. Like it's like the second half of the trailer where they're like, actually, look at how your choices are impacting things. I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, there's different ways that I feel like I could have seen that in a more compact way. But so Yeah, I think in a weird way, like the first 2 minutes of it, like was like, okay, I'm in, and then like the last 3 minutes, I was like, okay, I get it now, and then it kind of like
Hmm.
almost sold me out of it by the end of it. So we'll see how this one lands for me, but no, I definitely, I mean, In Exile has a pedigree at this point, even though they're not like, the, I think this might is this a first person game? I'm not sure, but
I
they
think
have
so.
a very strong like the writing is always very like praised in terms of like how good the Wasteland games are written. So
Hmm.
it looks cool, but I don't think it's definitely not a 3 game.
Yeah,
Although Clockwork Revolution, simple, good name.
I was, excited from that first trailer, but after this trailer, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's definitely a game that I want to play when that comes out. Like that, it looks just right up my alley. So I think it looks really cool. The
Yeah,
one thing that is very sad though is that at the end, coming in due time, which is exactly how they ended the last trailer years ago.
yeah, yeah,
So who knows? I guess that means like 27 at the earliest, but I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Still gonna have to wait for that one.
Who knows? Maybe next year Shadow Drop. It's out next week. It's out in
Stranger things
August.
have happened.
Yeah, yes, they have. All right. All right. You know what? Look, there's some honorable mentions that we'll get to after we talk about the big show, because after my next one, we'll kind of just jump into the to the last game here on the list.
Mm.
But this one's going to surprise a lot of people, and I know it's going to piss off some people that it's on my list, but you know what? It's my list, okay? And I can do what I want. And this was both a surprising one. It's both not surprising and surprising, but if you know who I am, it's not surprising why it's on this list, and that is Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Look, I get it. It's another Call of Duty, but Black Ops is like, look, Modern Warfare is great, but Black Ops is my bread and butter. I love that series. I think that narratively, the tones that Treyarch is able to strike with Black Ops, when they actually have a fucking campaign, by the way, fuck Black Ops 4, and I'm not gonna get into it, um, but yeah, like, and by the way, so you might have noticed my background. I'm the moo aside. I've been kind of, I realized there's a blank wall for too long, and I actually originally here. This is a Call of Duty Infinite Warfare poster, which I have not actually played Infinite Warfare, but it's there because it
Play
looks
it.
cool.
I actually
But
like it. I know a lot of people don't, but I think it's great.
it's on my list. It's on my list. But like, so I originally here I had a Black Ops 2 poster, and I did it the day before the showcase, and then I realized that I didn't like the framing, so I took it down and then I ripped it. So I was like, oh well, there goes. It was a very unfortunate event, but so that's why I replaced it with another Call of Duty poster. But I love Black Ops, and so essentially the timeline now is Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, and then Black Ops 6 is the sequel to Black Ops 2, and then Black Ops 7 is obviously a direct sequel to 6. And it, first of all, but without knowing that it was a Call of Duty game, it's so funny because people are like, so you could tell that, like, oh, it's like, people were like excited because they're like, oh, dude, it looks fucking sick. The cast is cool because it's got like Milo and Kieran Shipka and it's like, oh, and the visuals are trippy and the music is sick. And then the Call of Duty logo shows up and they're like, no, it looks like ass. And it's like, well, no, it didn't. It didn't look like ass. But no, I'm really intrigued by how they do this story and everything. And I'm actually I'm ready for this. All right. And so I just I just bought Black Ops 1 and 2 again on the 360 so that I can play it on my Xbox Series X. And so I want to replay them, and then I'm gonna play Black Ops 6 campaign for the first time. Like I've not touched the campaign for it. I played zombies and multiplayer because Austin kind of roped me in, but um, I want to play the story and I want to see where it goes. And also, very interestingly, and this is like a weird thing, like again, Black Ops 2, one of my all-time favorite games, and to the point where like I can like there's be times where I'll like the certain lines from that game or like even the trailer will be like in my head, and I'll be like, "What's that line? What am I thinking of?" And it's like, "Oh, it's Black Ops 2." Like, you know, if you play the Black Ops 2 storyline, one of the villains of that game is Raul Menendez, who I think is like a very kind of famous villain in the Call of Duty series at this point. But he, Black Ops 2 is set in the future, and essentially his like he has this like this group that he leads, and the first thing that he, like, the first big landmark thing that he does is upload this video about like, "Hey, this is the future," or whatever. And that video, Nick, all right, and is released on YouTube on the far distant date of June 20th, 2025. So in 9 days, Raul Menendez will release that video. Now, I think that's actually probably when the pre-orders will or something will go live for Black Ops 7. But just the fact that we're here is crazy to me.
That'd be cool
But,
if they are smart enough to go back and look at that and plan that accordingly. Then I think that would be cool.
So, and I'm just really interested to see what they do here. You're playing in Black Ops 7 as Mason's son, and again, the numbers Mason, what do they mean? And was it last episode we were just talking about like quotes from Black Ops? Because I was like, oh no, was it on? No, we were playing Night Rain, I think, because we were talking about how like I always think of like, I am Viktor Reznov and I will have my revenge.
Yeah.
And then you were saying that like, skewer the winged beast.
Yeah.
So yeah, this series fucking slaps. Sorry. So anyway, Black Ops 7. You play as the Mason's, like David Mason's son. I think his name. Yeah, David's son. And then Menendez is back, or it seems that it's Menendez. But what happens in Black Ops 2? There's multiple endings. So like there's a canonically, I think there's one ending, and then others, etc. So anyway, that's all to say. I'm looking forward to Black Ops 7, despite the Call of Duty fatigue or whatever. I've been playing a lot of Warzone, but it's different.
Yeah, I think as a show ender, I did not love it. I think a show ender should always be like a surprise, and while this is surprising, I think it's hard to be max surprise at a yearly release kind of game.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That I was, kind of rubbed the wrong way. I thought that was not the right choice to end on. But
by the way, a lot of people like watched my reaction and was like, "How are you so surprised by a Call of Duty?" My surprise was not at the fact that there was another Call of Duty game. It was a surprise at the fact that it was a Call of Duty, like that they were ending on a Call of Duty game, and that it was like, oh yeah, it's also Black Ops. It's also like Menendez is back and it's a Mason, like all that stuff is what the surprise was, not necessarily like, oh, it's another Call of Duty game. I'm so excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
anyway, continue.
I'm also really confused at what timeline Call of Duty is on now, because like it used to be like your Modern Warfare, your Sledgehammer game that can be somewhere, and then Treyarch usually doing Black Ops.
Yeah.
But now we're on like Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 6, Black Ops 7. It's like I don't understand what kind of happened there, that we're getting like double back to back.
Yeah, I think this is a byproduct of the fact that there's like 10 fucking studios that work on those games now, because
Sure.
It used to be like, there's 3 main studios that were kind of alternating, and so they each essentially they were, well, it was 2 initially and then 3, but like that gave them like a 2-year, 3-year development cycle that they were kind of working back with. But now I think with the way that these resources are managed, and I'm not excited for the like multiplayer or whatever. Like I'm not like, oh, more Black Ops multiplayer. Like I barely touched the multiplayer because I just didn't click with Black Ops 6 multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
But like it seems like they're also like having there's some sort of like a new Warzone map or something that they're hinting at. Like there's like a shot of like people diving into a map, like a map together. But another thing that's kind of exciting about this one though is that it is the 3rd Call of Duty game in history to have a co-op campaign. It's World at War. Black Ops 3 is also co-op, and now Black Ops 7, which is, again,
nice.
As someone who likes to play co-op a lot, it's nice to see that.
Yeah, I I wish I was a bit more excited than I am on it. You know, you and I both we love campaigns and everything like that, but yeah, just
Yeah.
I think it's specifically that back-to-back nature to me, where it's like even when Modern Warfare
Yeah,
3 was coming out and it was just like, oh, we're doing Modern Warfare again. Like I think the
Right.
like
No, I 100% agree.
break makes that easier, even with the yearly release, where it's just like, okay, next year you're getting a different vibe at least. But when they do it back to back, it's just like, yeah, I don't know. And I guess like this one's probably going to lean like solely in the future stuff, I imagine. Whereas Black Ops 2 was kind of split between like old and new.
Yeah. And again, that's why I'm curious what 6 has to offer. Like, what exactly is the campaign of 6? Because I did play, I experienced Cold War, and I played a little bit of Cold War, but like that is, oh, have you played any of Cold War? I know you played Black Ops 1 and 2, but or 2 recently.
I've
But
played all of them
um,
except for the new Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 6. Those are the only two
so
that I think I'm missing.
Cold War has a wild ass ending. Like I got to the end of Cold War and I was like, how is this functionally canon? Like, how do you make any of this canon? Like, so I don't know what Cold War. I don't know what that storyline is about. But yeah, so I'm curious.
Also, this is
6.
a random sidebar. Does it annoy you that Cold War is the only non-numbered Black Ops game?
Yes, absolutely. I said to this in some of my comments, but I really think that like I don't know why they went back to 6. Like I don't know why they named it. You know, they went through 4 and then like, oh, Cold War. I feel like it would just be better to name them like hyphenated and just, you know, keep going with that kind of series. But maybe it's like Call of Duty hyphen Black Ops hyphen Cold War was like too much for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's like, you know, the in the store it's like Call of Duty hyphen Black Ops hyphen Cold War hyphen or no, sorry, dash deluxe edition, you know, like
Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know. But oh well. It is weird to be like, oh yeah, you got to play 1, 2, 6, and 7. That's the games that you have to play.
Yeah, crazy.
And with that, we come to our big final game. The game that we didn't no, we knew they were going to announce, or you know, you felt it in your cojones, but that Capcom had 2 attempts at trying to convince you it wasn't happening. And to their credit, it to the people that it worked on, I bet that fucking reveal was absolutely crazy because they, you know what? I think it was, I don't remember if it was on stream or before stream, but Nick and I had an exchange about how do you recapture the excitement of the Resident Evil 7 reveal. And I think this was their attempt at being like, how do we do this? Probably by telling them this is not going to happen twice. And then it actually happens. We are, of course, talking about Resident Evil Requiem. Of course, this is the 9th mainline Resident Evil game. And I believe, as a fun fact, the Japanese word for 9 is like Q, I think. So, and it's also why the Q in Requiem is 9.
Yeah.
But what do you think of this one?
Resident Evil. So,
Sorry, Nick, you have to say it properly.
Resident Evil Requiem? Is that what I have to say?
No. You got to give it the Resident Evil. You know, you got to hit one of those.
So in recent years, I've become a fan of Resident Evil.
Yeah.
And I've played like OG4. That's kind of where it started a couple years ago, back in like 2020 or something like that. Like I dabbled in some of the other older ones, like RE1 remake and stuff, but Resident Evil 4 OG was kind of where it started, and then Resident Evil 2 remake, 3 remake, 4 remake, 7 and Village are kind of where my modern understanding of it is coming from. And so, yeah, to get another game, that's exciting for me at a base level. Survival horror, it's not like I play a lot of them. Like when I think about it, it's like Dead Space, Resident Evil, Silent Hill and stuff. Like I play a lot of them, but it's not like my go-to franchise, right? Even though I have fun with those games and like I like them, and it's like, you know, like Dead Space, I think that's one of, you know, the more fun horror games and all that, and Resident Evil. Like I have
Yeah.
fun with those games every time I play them. So it's like it's exciting for me. At the same time, it's like, getting a Resident Evil announcement. It's kind of the same thing as like the Call of Duty announcement, where it's like, yeah, it's been gone for a bit, but like maybe it's not like the thing that gets me the most hype or whatever.
Sure.
That aside, I do think that it's going in a very interesting direction, especially with this trailer. Like returning to Raccoon City after it's been nuked. Like I think this is like officially now like the latest in the timeline of Resident Evil. So
Yeah.
that's always exciting whenever you have a new game that's exploring like new story ground, especially in a place like Raccoon City that so many games have been placed in and have stories that have been, built up. And specifically
right up to the bomb drop.
yeah. And so there's been like rumors floating around about this game that it might be going in a more open world direction. So if it does introduce elements like that and you're like re-exploring famous areas that have been changed like this, I mean, they showed the RPD in the trailer, so at least that is going to be there. But like,
Yeah.
if you like go down like a specific street or something like that, and it's like, oh, this is that street from Resident Evil like Outbreak or whatever, between the two hotels and stuff. Like I think there's probably some really cool level design specific kind of references, I guess, that they could draw on, which would be really cool. And then there's also like the question of like, okay, so a nuke went off here, there was already like weird zombies. It's like, is there going to be like freako mutated like zombies and stuff like that? How does that change things?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then you have
Like
this,
you have the virus, but now it's like radiated virus. It's
and it's like
interesting.
with the nuke that went off there, like is that going to play a factor? Like is there going to be like radiation zones or something that you'll have to avoid? And then also the main character, Grace Ashcroft, being like an FBI kind of, I don't know if you'd say agent. They've said in the previews that came out today that like she's like trained with weapons, but doesn't really seem like she's like a Leon Kennedy that's like going in and torching the place, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. And the last thing that I'll say before I kick it over to you to get your side of this, in the previews today that have come out for like a behind closed doors demo that people saw, there is the option to play the game in first person or third person, which that's new ground for the series too. So I think that's a really interesting choice, allowing people to kind of tailor the experience how they want. Like I saw like a comment on one of the videos I was watching where somebody was like, how do you balance that? Because like third person, you just get more spatial awareness in this. And in my brain, it's like, it's a trade-off. So it's, you get the more spatial awareness if you play third person and it feels like, RE2, RE3, RE4, that sort of stuff. Or you get the more immersive feeling, which is the Resident Evil 7 and Village vibe. And you deliberately have less spatial awareness, but it really kind of puts you into that environment in a more visceral way. Oh, there goes my light.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to hear what you have to say now.
Well, it's so to kind of go off what you were going for, like, so to set the stage, I got into Resident Evil pretty much right as I got into streaming. It's because like Resident Evil 7 was the first game that I streamed like entirely. Like it was during COVID, and I was like, oh well, let's do it. And then since 7 went into 8, absolutely loved 8 and what it did with 7 and everything, like that duology, I'll say. And then I went back, and I like within kind of our community, because of how we kind of do the streams, I watched / kind of participated in a Resident Evil 2 remake playthrough, Resident Evil 3 remake playthrough, and then I played Resident Evil 6 myself. And then just like a few months ago, actually like in January, I played through Resident Evil Raccoon City, Operation Raccoon City. So those are my my big ones. Back in the day, I played Resident Evil 5. Like I don't remember it much. I need to go back and actually replay that game. And so there's a few games in the series that I actually want to go back and replay for myself and kind of like experience for myself for the first time. RE4 being kind of a big one that I've been meaning to go back and kind of experience front to back. But that being said, I am in kind of constant awe at the way that Capcom has moved this series. I mean, it really felt like after when Resident Evil 6 came out, I remember there was like the general public was like, "Oh, Resident Evil, that sucks ass." Like it was just like, "Oh, the series was like, like the video game series was like weirdly action oriented, so it lost all that DNA of like horror." And then the movies were also like relevant at the time, and the movies just were not it. And so all of that combined, it was just like this. The odds were stacked against him, and then they were like, you know what, we could retire the series, or we could just totally reshape it. And the fact that they were able to reshape it and have it, I think, land so successfully is really impressive. And if you know me, you'll know how big of a praise this is. It's sort of like what they did with Mission Impossible in terms of like, oh, they had this direction that they were going in, but the first three movies were just like, oh yeah, three different packages, and like, how do you do it? And then what like by the time you get to the Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning, you're like, oh shit, like they really did the thing. Like they made this like feel totally fresh but cohesive at the same time. So all that to say, I really love Resident Evil. And I don't have an experience with like Silent Hill or anything. This is really my kind of core horror survival horror franchise. So I was really excited to see it, but I also think that because I've been so tuned to it, like as soon as I saw it, I was like, "This is Resident Evil. Like this looks like the RE engine. Like it just feels like you can just kind of tell."
So it's that character design and like the way that like hair kind of looks in
the
RE
hair
engine,
definitely is a big part. And so yeah, look, and RE engine is a very good looking engine, and I'm really curious to see what they do with it here because you kind of mentioned the like the rumors about open world, and I hadn't heard that, but the way Jeff talked about it regarding like the scale and ambition of the project, it makes you wonder like what else could you mean when you mean scale? Like is it just like, I mean, it has to be map size, and they also have a shot specifically kind of showcasing Raccoon City in a larger, like a wide shot. And so I'm curious to see how it is. In Resident Evil 3 remake, there's a part at the beginning where you're playing as Jill and you're walking through like the streets of Raccoon City, like right before the bombs drop and everything. And so you get a little bit of taste. And I always wondered when I watched that, I was like, like I wonder like what it would be like to just walk Raccoon City, like walk the streets. It was obviously going to be a little bit different. Now, just to kind of like dig into it a little bit, because we didn't get a whole lot other than, like the fact that, we're following a FBI agent or whatnot. So according to the official game page, Resident Evil Requiem is the ninth title in the mainline Resident Evil series. Prepare to escape death in this heart-stopping experience that will chill you to your core. Bet. Technological advancements combined with the development team's depth of experience combine in a story with rich characters and gameplay that's more immersive than ever before. Return once again to the city of disaster and despair, a Midwestern city in the United States and the headquarters of the former global pharmaceutical company Umbrella. In the face of the zombie outbreak in 1998, a government-approved sterilization operation, a missile strike on the city in an attempt to quickly bring the situation under control, but this was swiftly covered up. Oh, so they don't say nuke. I wonder if that's like a retcon that it was a nuke versus just like a missile strike on the city.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
You play as Grace Ashcroft, an intelligence analyst in the FBI who demonstrates intense focus and insight in deductive reasoning and analysis. Her mother's death shook her to the soul, making her an introvert who immerses herself in work. So she heads to the abandoned hotel alone to investigate a mysterious death. This is some really poor grammar on this page. Experience in the series' classic survival horror through combat, investigations, puzzles, and resource management. Gameplay allows you to... there you go. It says right here. Freely switch between first and third-person views to face the horrors in a way that suits your playstyle. And also kind of an impressive thing that I think even more so than the surprise of the game reveal was the fact that it has a release date of February 27th, 2026, just 8 months away. Absolutely crazy.
Hmm.
The fact that they're just like, oh yeah, here it is. It's coming. You're looking at it, and it's coming out very soon. And it's also going to be playable at Gamescom. And if you know it, if you haven't watched, I will be at Gamescom this year, and so I'm hoping to get my hands on this, and we'll share early thoughts when we can. Um, they also say in the trailer you catch a glimpse of what happened to the now abandoned Raccoon City after the events of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. Okay. So yeah, look, I'm really excited for this one. This like Resident Evil just always at this point, no, not always, but now, modern day Resident Evil is just really interesting to me. Oh, I also played Resident Evil Revelations. I forgot about that. The first one. I played the first one like twice, I think.
Hmm.
And actually, Resident Evil Revelations was like one of the first games I reviewed on the original Respawn station, like before it was what it is now. That was one of the first games I played on the Nintendo Switch, no less. So
Nice.
yeah, the way it was intended to be played. So I'll definitely be playing. We have 8 months. I'll probably play at least one other Resident Evil to prepare myself for this. I love doing that shit. Like getting excited for one game and then kind of playing either like a last game from that developer or just like another game in that series.
Hmm.
And so I just talked about it with Black Ops. I'm going to do it with Resident Evil, I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I like my Resident Evil, I think, the most when it blends horror with like, I don't even know how you describe it, like weird adventure stuff. So like Resident Evil 4 and Village specifically, where it's like horror, but you're like finding treasures and stuff, and there's like an enigmatic merchant. So I kind of hope that some of that appears in Requiem.
Yeah.
Because I like that kind of schlock stuff.
I didn't actually ever look up the word requiem. So, a requiem or requiem mass, also known as the Mass for the Dead or Mass of the Dead, is a mass of the Catholic Church offered for the repose of the souls of the deceased, using a particular form of the Roman missal. It is usually celebrated in the context of a funeral. I didn't know that.
Hmm.
Interesting. So there you go. That was Resident Evil Requiem. Really excited about it. I think we're both excited about it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, on episode 79. All right, episode 79, we'll talk about we'll talk about what we think about Resident Evil Requiem. But with that said, Nick, before we wrap up the show, some quick honorable mentions. Do you got any you want to throw out there?
Yeah. I'll throw out some quick ones here. Scott Pilgrim EX. I thought that was a fun
Oh, sure.
announcement. A follow up to the Scott Pilgrim versus the World video game from a couple years ago. I thought Into the Unwell looked really cool. That was a. I'm not really sure
Sure.
what type of game, but I told
I
you
think
in
it's a 3D
the.
platformer.
I saw other people saying it was like a roguelike though, also. So like maybe something like that. But it reminded me a lot of like
You
a.
are right. It is also a roguelike.
Okay. So
It's a dive into the unwell, and one of several flawed and heavily medicated misfits in the delightfully despondent third-person roguelike game, playing alone or with up to two friends.
it reminded me visually a lot of like an OG Xbox game. So that's what kind of
Yeah,
stuck
yeah.
out to me. And then the other one that I have here is End of Abyss, which was kind of like that Little Nightmares esque, like sci-fi twin stick kind of shooter. That one looked pretty cool too.
See, interesting that no mention of that puppet game from you. Not the puppet, the stop motion game from you.
The
Interesting.
co-op one, End of Words or
Yeah.
something.
End of Out of words. Yeah,
Out of
out of
Words.
words.
I thought yeah, it was fine.
And maybe
I
not.
feel
Maybe
like
not.
maybe I'm a little desensitized to the stop motion
Sure.
look because a lot of people are doing that now. So,
Yeah. All right. So I have some quick mentions that I'll throw out there. So here's the thing. I'm not going to mention like I'm really excited about Gears of War Reloaded. I think it looks cool, but again, that was announced, so it can't really. It's not going to be worth mentioning. So we have Animo, which kind of feels like what Pokemon would look like if they gave a shit about the series. Look, I don't know what the actual game will be or play like, but just visually, what they showcased in that game, I believe it was the Xbox Game Showcase that they did that, looks really nice and like really like just the detail, the vibrancy, just it feels really lively. And I think that's something that a lot of people have been complaining about the recent Pokemon games. It's just like, oh, it feels like so lifeless, and it's like, yeah, well, maybe the Switch 2, maybe Pokemon Za will, we'll fix that. But speaking of Pokemon, Game Freak had a game at Xbox Game Showcase. It was so jarring for me because I was actually looking at the stream to make sure it was okay, and out the corner of my eye, I was like, "Is that Game Freak?" And then I looked over and it was gone. So the whole time I was watching this trailer, going, "Is this can't be Game Freak, right? Like Game Freak, Game Freak." No, it is Game Freak, Game Freak. It's called Beast of Reincarnation. In a post-apocalyptic Japan, humanity's last hope may rest with Emma and her loyal canine companion, Ko. Explore what it means to be human in Beast of Reincarnation. Expansive one-person, one-dog action RPG built around demanding technical combat. What awaits at Journey's End? Question mark. This is from publisher Fiction, and of course developed by Game Freak. And it is tagged as a action RPG Souls-like. We don't get enough of those Souls-like games
from the gameplay and the trailer.
The only thing I will say is I mean, look, both the games I'm going to mention here are sort of like the gameplay didn't quite live up to what the premise of it is. So they're honorable mentions because of premise alone. And I'm hoping that by the time it comes out, this one's slated for 2026. By the time it comes out, it's more polished and it runs a little bit better or whatever. But the one thing that really was I thought was, don't know why, but the trailer had the most generic Arial font to end it on. I was like, really? You can have any personality in the font? It was, honestly, very Game Freak. So, well, again, coming out next year, at least for Steam and Xbox, I believe. I don't know if it's been confirmed for anything else as of yet, but that is Beast of Reincarnation. And the other game, PS5 as well. Yeah, PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC XS. And the last game is again same thing. The gameplay isn't they included parts of the gameplay. I'm like, that's not the smoothest gameplay and performance, but looks like the premise and everything looks really awesome. This is from publisher Bandai Namco and developer Rebel Wolves, and it's called The Blood of Dawnwalker. It's an open world dark fantasy action RPG set in the 14th century Europe. You play as Cohen, a human by day and a vampire by night, fighting to save your family in a story shaped by your actions and secrets you uncover. If you know me, I like me some fantasy creatures. Especially werewolves, vampires, all that stuff. And this looked pretty cool. The setup and premise of this looked pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that one's coming from some former Witcher 3 devs. So
it very
RPG
has that energy.
Yeah.
But with that said, Nick, any other games you want to throw out there?
Nah, we pretty much got through my entire list of things that I thought
we also
were exciting, so.
Because even the games that I was like, I didn't mention, you ended up mentioning them. So we covered everything but Scum. Oh, dang it.
Maybe next time.
maybe next time. Hope you guys enjoyed, as always. I don't have any other games to cover. So Nick, take us home.
If you enjoyed, please do give us a rating on podcast services and YouTube and all that. And with that said, you got it. Have a good night, a good morning, and a damn good time.